Oh, sorry. Angels in the outfield. But are they any good? We'll discuss tonight. Outfield Dynasty rankings. It's time for Dingers.
This is Dingers, way more than fantasy baseball. We keep it real when we talk and knock it straight out the park. Let's see the stats. What's the average draft position? What kind of plays you making? Check the wins above replacement. Check the lineups and the points. This I gotta see. What's your path to victory? Are they aiming for a dynasty? Get points going head to head. Please don't do me no favors. We're always watching waivers. Ain't no minor league. This is major. Yeah, Dingers. Let's go.
Welcome to Dingers, the only fantasy baseball podcast for smart people. It's not just Clint Frazier that wins you championships. That's why week in and week out, we're delivering tips and strategies to help you live that straight up OG lifestyle. Tyler Childs, joined again by Robbie Baseball from the Murder Room. How are you doing, Robbie?
Good. Just sending our friend Michael Govier a message because he is on the clock in one of the dynasty leagues that we play in together. And yesterday, Ty, he committed the second worst sin in fantasy baseball drafting. Do you know what that is?
Auto draft?
He timed out.
Oh,
Ugh, 8-hour clock too. No. I mean, I know he's like living his life and stuff, but still.
Yeah, you gotta call him out. You gotta be shamed. We need the Game of Thrones lady.
Well, I was gonna do the shame one, but instead I did a Jim from The Office going.
Do you watch Ted Lasso?
No, I don't have whatever it is you need for Ted Lasso, but I have the rest.
Okay, but the main, for those of you that are listening that do have the world at your fingertips, is the owner of the soccer club in Ted Lasso is the shame lady, and I didn't know that.
Oh, hey, that's fun.
I don't know if people knew that or not, but that's a connector piece. So she really is moved up from the shame lady to now owner of a Premier League football team. So good for you.
Yeah, good for her. So, well, good for everybody tonight for joining us on the live stream. Thank you. And to whomever it was on Twitter that was said, when are you going to record this? We appreciate that you wanted more of us, or you just didn't care about having Mason on last week talking prospects, which if you did not tune into that one, go back. I think it's episode 191 and this is 192. Is that right, Ty?
Yeah.
We were somewhere up in that realm, and Mason is hands down the best guy to talk about first-year player drafts with when you're talking about the MLB side, or sorry, when you're talking about the MLB Rule 4 draft. So the high school and college age guys. Because I mean, Ty, even last week we were just talking with him and saying, "Hey, can you check this out?" And he's like, "Yeah, boom," because he's got proprietary information, or just like he's got next gen Moneyball statistics at his fingertips. And we love the fact that we can just ask him questions and talk to him about players and say, what's the deal with this guy that was drafted a couple years ago? And where was he? And Mason can give us that information, which of course we're passing on to you because like you, we enjoy winning. And Mason's a guy that helps us do that.
Mason equals smart people too. So there's
100%.
Those of you that are math wizards out there, that's the equation. I know that we've got a long list ahead of us tonight, so I think we should get into it, Robbie. But before we do, you know what we got to do.
A long time ago, someone decided to put stuff in glass bottles. In some of these bottles, they put juice or milk, and that was stupid. Today, only alcohol and a few other products remain in the containers from the gods. It's time for beers and bourbon, because good advice only comes in a bottle.
Oh, that sounded nice.
That was nice.
I've got the double again tonight.
What do you call this thing again? Is it an Uber?
Yeah. Oh, sure. It's an Uber. It's a Crown Float.
I did love that somebody in our one of our leagues in the recent days drafted Randy Dobnak, and the way we were posting in the chat was player name and then position, and it was starting pitcher / Uber driver, which was hilarious. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that's great. And what did you think, Ty, of my Jeremiah Jackson draft? I sent it to you after I posted in the room. So for everybody who does not know, I did post it on Twitter at Robbie Baseball One, where you can find me. You can find the podcast at Dingers Pod and Ty at Tourney Boss. But what it was I was smoking at work and not cigarettes, smoking food, and I actually smoked water also, Ty, for future experiments. But yeah, I did my smoking. When I was done, I grabbed some extra wood chips, threw them in the bottom, fired it up, and then wrote on Jeremiah Jackson, shortstop, LA Angels, which is shortstop, third base. But I put in the smoker, closed the door, then filmed it. And that was me selecting him. And then I went home, and like 4 hours later, I was on the clock, and I'm like, thank God he's still there. Because I didn't, it would have been funnier if I did it with like 4 guys. But yeah, I ended up getting me slugger, future Los Angeles Angels starting shortstop or third base, probably shortstop because of that old man they've got there. But anyway, fun, right? It's draft season for Dynasty, guys.
Yeah. I was just confused, and I told you this. Like, I didn't know whether it was a freezer or a,
right,
like a smoker. So that
industrial
would be
grade smoker, right? So
yeah,
it
looks
looks
my
like
only
a
constructive
fridge.
feedback. I just had no idea what was happening. I'm like, is there like saturated onions in that bin? Like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea what this is. Right.
Well,
like,
I was doing just for the fun of Twitter, and because I am a chef by trade, I posted the week before about trying to figure out a way to do like a vegan salmon comparable product. Basically, I wanted to find something you could put on a bagel that would be like, lox and salmon. So I did a smoked carrot salmon, and then people were asking questions, which was great. And I went through it, and it worked really well. And our executive chef at the university I work at came in, and I told him, you need to create a food truck that I can take around campus. It'll be called White Boy Sushi. Just let me have my thing here. And we had a good discussion about it. But it's because of
that would so work at a university setting.
100%.
It would so work.
Well, we thought it'd be funny if we had just any spot with a storefront where the students could come in, and it would be like sushi, and it would all look like it's legit. But we have a Korean guy who's like amazing at sushi, Steven. He's a guy who I've talked about. He knows the KBO inside out and backwards. And when we talk prospects, he's helped me out with a couple guys. Because he's a big fan of baseball. So we were talking KBO, MLB, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, it would be funny if he was the guy at the front taking the orders from everybody, and then you just had a couple of white boys in the back making all the sushi, because you can buy a machine that actually like you just put cooked rice in the top and just press a button, and boom, it comes out. Like you put the nori down, and it does the whole. Anyway, I love making sushi. It's a passion, because it's something that I
like
normally
eating it.
Do.
You like making it. There's a great
relationship
here that we have.
Hey, maybe for the league draft next month, Ty, I just show up with a nice sushi platter, and it'll just be a guess as to when I made it.
Yeah, I might trade the house if you bring a sushi boat.
I'll consider it. All
right, let's get into it. We're going to start outside the top 100 today. We're going to cover our top 100 in detail, but there are guys, remember that we do 5-year projections here. So anybody inside of our top 100 is a projection based off of the next 5 years. So you're going to hear about guys that in a lot of lists are going to be higher because they have prospect type or whatever. We're not doing that here. We're talking about actual production for the next 5 years. So before we do that, I'm going to hand it to Robbie. Robbie's going to go through the guys outside the top 100 that he likes, and he's going to kick it back to me. I'm going to do my group, and then we're going to get into the top 100. So, Robbie, take it away.
Yeah, the first one, he's not even on the list. It's a St. Louis Cardinal J2 guy, Will Cho, CHO. Anyway, I will have more on him when we do discuss prospects and outfield prospects. But if you don't know, you can just look. He's got a YouTube channel. He does a lot of really cool stuff. He's a home run champ and signed this year. He was supposed to be a guy that signed in next year's J2 for like multi-millions, but he just wanted to start his pro career early. So he signed CHO and then look for St. Louis. That's the last. I think it's Juan, WON-BIN, Juan Bin Cho. Just, total flyer. I had him sniped on me in 130 team draft, and I immediately contacted the guy and was like, are you a St. Louis fan? How do you know of him? And I was angry because I was assuming I could get him somewhere post 200 in my draft. And he went, I think, in the top 120, something like that. So anyway, sometimes you got to just know these guys. Elijah Dunham with the Yankees is another prospect of note. Now, Dunham went to the AFL and was very good. And that's how I found out about him, because we talked about him on a previous podcast. But in diving in a little deeper to him, I saw that he was like a 2019 drafted player who did not sign. And then last year After his college season, he signed with the Yankees for the max $20,000 bonus. And because of that, nobody knows anything at all about this guy. But I can tell you right now, he is, well, in the fall league, was an average guy, 351 average, 10 stolen bases. Not flashy, but I think he's going to be in AAA this year. I think, an Aaron Hicks injury and the Aaron Hicks profile, hopefully not the injury risk, is acceptable with him. And you could see somebody like Elijah Dunham just come out of nowhere this year and possibly end this year and be ready for next year to be one of these hyped guys that we'll be talking about later on. There's Stephen Kwan, who's not on our list. He's a AAA 10-10 or 15-15 potential guy with Cleveland, but there's a lot of talk about, is he going to start, or is he going to be Cleveland's next guy that should have got playing time? And that's just another one to kind of note. And if you're at all interested in these kind of guys, I have, as I said to Ty before, been writing again on the website, robbiebaseball.com, and you can check that out, because that's where I can say things that I know Ty is just going to shoot down. And if I put it on the website, he there's no comment section. So
I did go through a couple of the articles. So,
well, I'm happy to have anyone's feedback on it, ideally after the draft that we may or may not be in the same league as, so that you don't snipe me on them. But Taylor Trammell,
I like a lot of your points. There's a lot of really good stuff in there. There's some things like, and anyone that listens to us regularly knows that I don't agree with everything that you say. You don't agree with me. So there's things that naturally we just disagree on, and that's the beauty of our chatter here. So that's about the extent of what I don't like about what you posted.
Fair. Here's somebody that I don't think anybody likes right now, Ty. That's Taylor Trammell. He is well outside of our top 100, but last year he did have 20 home runs and 10 stolen bases between MLB and AAA. Now, the MLB was terrible. He doesn't really have a spot in Seattle. That's, I think, for me anyway, that was a real reason why I pushed him a lot further down than I think he deserves to be. But you have to take into serious consideration with 5-year MLB production, what are the odds they're actually going to play? And we already know Julio Rodriguez. I'm trying to think of who else. Seattle's got at least 2 guys that are in that company of like 5th, 6th outfielder that are likely to hop over Taylor if he doesn't take off. So Fraley. This is a very, thank you. Fraley is, I see him kind of as a 4th outfielder.
Dylan
but on the MLB
there.
squad,
there's lots of guys there.
Yeah. There's guys that are going to be on the club. They've also talked about Abraham Toro taking outfield at bat. So there's lots of guys that are going to be on the club that'll prevent somebody from coming up that isn't like raking in AAA. So Jalen Davis is a AAA rake because that's all he does. 30 home run pop. And if it wasn't for the weird 2020, I think he might be an MLBer right now. Yeah. But it was 35 home runs in 19, and he would have been right around that again last year, Ty. But injuries and the promotion and a lot of time sitting on the bench in San Francisco prevented him from repeating the gaudy numbers. But he's available in most of your leagues.
And that's a guy we promoted in 19, right? Like we were telling.
Yeah, we saw it. We liked it.
Yeah. So we're still holding up hope. Is he our next Tyler O'Neill? Is that the question? Do we hang our hat on that?
I can't go that way in San Francisco, but if there's a guy who has the power and needs the playing time more, I don't know where they are on this list. Like he's absolutely potential breakout dude. But the biggest problem is that San Francisco was good and they are not looking to offer opportunity up because there are other prospects that are more coveted than a 27-year-old guy who's got rookie eligibility still. So, and 2 cups of coffee in the show. Bayron Lora never has had that cup of coffee. I think he's 18 now. He had a serious injury last year. He was in a car accident. I believe he broke his leg, and I had seen him cut in a 24-team league. And I thought, does that guy not understand that you can recover from that? It's not a career-ending injury. And he showed it last year because he went to the Dominican Summer League, led the league in walks. He had 48 walks. I forget what the percentage was, but it was like high teens. Did not have a great average, but also had 6 home runs and a high OBP. And that's a great sign. Now, Texas wants the power, and that's something that can develop with him. But the fact that he's back on the map and a league leader when you have guys that are as young as 17, and I think 21 was the oldest age I had seen in that league, that's a good sign for somebody who a lot of people have just like removed from the radar. He's not even on MLB.com's top 30 prospects, which says crazy. Something. Yeah, it really does.
If you have a 400 OPS at that level with that plate discipline, with the power upside, like I agree. It's a buy all day.
and you have teammates that you had in the DOSL, who are on the list for Texas and are much higher up. But anyway, next guy up that I've got, Ty, we're getting a little closer to hundreds. We're in the teens, 100 teens. Mike Ciani with Cincinnati, and to be perfectly honest, Ciani saved basically his stock last year as a potential MLBer in the AFL. He only had 36 at bats, Ty, 10 stolen bases, 11 runs, a 306 average. That's all you need to do. That's the Costanza. I'll see you guys later. So he got on base, he stole a base, he got driven in, and then he was done for the night. The lefty can hit. He needs to start at AA. He needs to finish at AAA in the farm system. He's only 22. So although he has been kicking around for a bit, he is still young. It's just like absolute, I think, prospect fatigue with Ciani. And click over technology, I tell you. Corbin Carroll recovering from shoulder surgery. Everybody's gonna have him up way higher. We understand, like Ty said off the top, 5-year MLB production has pushed him back outside of our top 100. Nelson Velasquez, yeah.
Before you just go on past Corbin Carroll, that is one, like, for me, I don't get the overhype. Like, I don't see what everyone else sees with Corbin Carroll. Like, he hit 288 in a relatively small sample in 19. And in last season, he had a ridiculously small sample with 29 plate appearances and he hit 435, right? So that's in that fastball category that we always talk about. And guess what? That's at high A. Like, he still has so much to prove. I think this is a bust. I really do. And I think way too many people have him way too high.
And one of the other things that we did talk about with Carroll last year was the fact that he is basically the same type of profile as Nick Madrigal, but everybody loves Corbin Carroll and everybody was hating on Nick Madrigal. So I don't think I'm going to jump on Corbin Carroll and say, this is what I want out of an outfielder. I want a lot more power potential and we've got a prospect who's ranked way the heck up there, who is completely overlooked, but is everything that people, I think, believe Corbin Carroll is. But this player that we're going to talk about actually is doing it. So next up is Nelson Velasquez, who from the AFL, you all know, 9 home runs, 361 average, 20 runs, which was also like crazy. But on his season, he had 20 dingers and a 270-ish average at A and AA. Not a big walk guy, 25% strikeout rate. I got some concerns here that this is just going to be his peak was the end of the season and everybody's buying in Dynasty now. And then they're just not going to see that progression, especially if his issue, and I don't know because I just didn't look at that data, if his issue is anything related to the fastball. He has to be able to hit the crap out of the fastball so that he can sit on it. Because if he has any issue, I think, at all with that, he's really going to struggle at AAA.
He's both of us ranked 100. Like, I think there's a bat here. This is a guy that I've watched for a long time in the J2 world. I've been on him for a long time. He took a dip. He's post-hype for sure as a prospect. I think he might be a starting outfielder in Chicago this season.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
so your ranking your ranking has more to do with, I think, playing time then, whereas mine has more to do with I'm thinking he's easily a 25 home run guy, but he could also be a 150 plus strikeout guy. And that's my big thing.
I think this time next year, he's in our top 50.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Geez. So he's got some work to do then for both of us.
I just think the hit tools come a long way. I think that's the most important thing. The power's always been there. So like the power is for real. And it is all about the hit tool for Nelson Velasquez because the rest of the skill set's there.
I appreciate that take as much as I am afraid of it. I mean, that's the nice part is because we don't often align on opinions. It works out well. One of the other guys that we really wanted greatness from, and I mean, this is a part of our problem. It could still come, guys, is Anthony Alford with Pittsburgh, who, believe it or not, looks like he might actually start the year in Pittsburgh. Now, if you go on Roster Resource, they say, yes, he is slated at the moment to be a starting, I think it's center field with Pittsburgh. Doesn't matter. Pittsburgh's not trying to do anything special out of the gate right now, and there's still free agents to be signed. But Alfred had a 307 average over 1,000 OPS, 14 home runs, 9 stolen bases, good RBIs and runs for the at bats he had last year in AAA. He came up and was finally he's not a prospect anymore, but he was able to have some amount of success. I think he was like 250 in the show, something like that last year. But this is somebody who has zero expectations now. And whoever has him in Dynasty is like, I don't care. They might look and be like, well, he's supposed to start, so give me like something for him. Because they're not like, oh, this is a guy. This is the breakout guy, right? But he can easily be a bench piece for you, especially if you're in a 5 outfielder league. There's no reason why you wouldn't want to be looking at someone like this who has potential as a starter. And I guess, what do I got? 2 guys left here, Ty, to talk about outside the top 100. One is Sam Hilliard, who both you and I have opinions on. So I'll go to Will Benson because I've already stolen him once from you this offseason. And that was through one of our leagues with a Rule 5 draft. And the deal with that was that if you drafted them, if they were drafted in 18 or earlier, is that what it was? The cutoff was 2018 or earlier. They were available. And because I've got notes on Benson.
I had taken him in the Rule 5 the year before. So he's
is that how it worked?
Rule 5'd in that league.
How fun. So he's got 20/20 potential, right? 20 dingers, 20 stolen bases potential. That's not penciled in.
Don't forget about the 200 strikeouts.
Absolutely. He's got OBP potential also, but could be like a 350 OBP guy. So it's kind of league dependent at the moment. But if he can sort out better contact, because he got promoted to AAA and hit like $160. So he struggled mightily. He pulled the Kelnick, but he did it one level below. So he did it at AAA and not in the show. But he's fast, so we know his BABIP should be good. So if he can get some good BABIP and balls on the ground and hit it hard, as we know he can, Will Benson is a potential guy to come up, and then he could force Cleveland's hand as early as the end of this season. That's my bid on him. And, with caution, of course, right?
Yeah.
With
at
caution.
AAA, he had a 40% strikeout rate.
Yeah. I mean, Aaron Judge didn't look great in his first taste of AAA either. So and I'm not saying he is Aaron Judge. I'm saying he's Aaron Judge 2.0. But it's a grain of salt, everybody. But Will Benson is somebody that I like because I think a lot of people have passed him and are off onto other adventures. So Sam Hilliard is the last guy, Ty, and he did not hit like he's supposed. We talked about this before. Colorado average. You don't have to be good. You just have to play in Colorado, and your average should be decent. Like league average last year was under 250. So he should be able to exceed that. Well, he didn't in AAA. He didn't in the show. And it looks like Connor Joe may have taken his job. So I have concerns about him. But to your point, Ty, you talked before we started recording, there's power there. And where there's power, there's love.
Yeah, I mean, the hit tool is the problem here. I mean, the unfortunate part is that unlike Velasquez, like it doesn't appear to be developing. It just seems to be staying the same and potentially getting worse. Power is there. Like he could hit 20 home runs even with the down average. That's very realistic here. I think the one thing that really helps Hilliard this year is that Colorado doesn't have a ton of depth and he only has one option left. So I think that actually helps Hilliard's value, which is why I have him a touch higher than where I actually think he belongs. I just think he's going to be forced into some playing time as Colorado rebuilds. I just think that's the byproduct. So before we get too long in the tooth here, I'm just going to jump back into a couple guys that are notable in the top 100 from my perspective. There's some guys, Rob, that are older veterans that have sorted down in our list that I think are worth noting. Maybe not elite guys, but could potentially sneak into the top 100 over a 5-year window. Cole Calhoun is a guy that's just quietly okay. That could find statistical advantages in there. Kevin Kiermaier is another guy that fits into that same category. There's a handful of guys that I think are a stretch, but guys that are future guys that just aren't ready to be in our list. Hudson Head's a guy that was a part of the Pittsburgh deal of Joe Musgrove going to San Diego. That's a guy you definitely need to be paying attention to further down the list. A guy that I think could be a really good waiver wire guy this year, Robbie, is Sky Bolt in Oakland. We've talked about him in previous episodes, right? A speed guy, a little bit of contact. And I think the
great
biggest
name.
Yep, I completely agree. And I think one of the most underappreciated bats in Oakland, this is an assumption. I actually have him ranked 74, Rob. But he slid down our list because I ranked him in our age category because I'm an idiot. But this is a guy that I think gets a huge bump when and if Matt Olson is traded, and that's Seth Brown. left-handed stick in Oakland. There's some actual upside here with Seth Brown. It's been a playing time issue for him up until now. I think he could be a very sneaky play in a lot of leagues this year as a guy that will cost you absolutely nothing to acquire, like literally zero. He could be on almost every waiver wire. And for good reason, he hasn't done a lot up until now. But I think if Matt Olson is traded, which it looks like he will be, Seth Brown's probably going to steal a lot of those at bats. So I think that's a very interesting name to note in that bottom group. If we move up the list a little bit further, I mean, I want to mention Billy McKinney just for fun, but I'm not going to. We get a little higher. We start to get into some talent. One of the guys that I like as a buy that is off everybody's list right now is Benjamin Bailey in Chicago, the White Sox. This is a Luis Robert. I heard somebody chirping the Robert comment on Twitter the other day. I thought that was funny. Luis Robert type profile for Benjamin Bailey, but the success just hasn't been there. So if you want a lottery ticket, that'll cost you very little. Benjamin Bailey is a guy that I would be targeting as a guy that could come out of nowhere this season. His stats up until now not been great, but the upside is still there. So just jump in a little bit higher. We're going to start to get into some guys that everyone's going to know about, and guys that you should know heading into this season. So that list starts with who do I want to start with? Jason Dominguez is a guy that I think everyone assumes should be on our list, Robbie. Neither of us are overly excited about Jason Dominguez. We're too early to that party for sure. I have serious concerns about the hit tool still, right? Like a very serious. The guy ahead of him in our list, Sully Matisse in Kansas City, is a very interesting profile comparison to Dominguez, to be frank. Like huge strikeout numbers, crazy good power, very similar. So that's just something to think about. Everybody gets so excited about these can't miss prospects, but they miss more often than people want to talk about. Owen Casey, Canadian kid in Chicago, went to Chicago as part of the Darvish trade.
Deal.
Yep. Key piece there. He's an outfielder of the future in Chicago. Another Canadian kid, David Calabrese, up ahead in LA, drafted last year, I believe, in the shortened draft. Austin Martin, everybody seems to know about. I think we could see Austin Martin as early as this season. I have him ranked in the top 100. I think we might see Austin Martin this year, depending on production from that Minnesota outfield and, the impending Byron Buxton injury. That's just an assumption that we're going to make here. Former J2 guy. Yep.
Just to your point on Austin Martin, if he's not getting himself hit by pitches, that OBP, as you had talked about before, will go down significantly for him. But also there's Kyle Garlick, who I believe is still part of Minnesota at this moment, recovering from an injury. He came up last year and was actually decent until he got hurt. So there's potential to have what I'll just call a plug like Kyle Garlick. He's not somebody you want to have in Dynasty and invest in, but he's the type of guy who can come up and they screw with the prospects that we covet because they get playing time and don't suck. So then they end up sticking around as like the Ryan Goins kind of, fifth. You have two backup infielders, and for some reason he's your third. You just don't get rid of him because he can do enough, and he tends to get into a bunch of games. Kyle Garlick could be that kind of a plug that screws with some of that, the Minnesota prospects that are all right, like kind of bubbling up. And Austin Martin, like you said, could absolutely join them next year.
Well,
but
I think it comes down to how good Minnesota is this year. Like if they put it together, I think we see Austin Martin. I think if they're awful like they were last year, I think they'll hold Austin Martin back just to keep contracts and pressure in play. Eric Payne is a guy that I think a lot of people have forgotten about in the prospect realm in Kansas City, former shortstop turned outfielder prospect. This is a guy that we could see in the next couple of seasons. There's still lots of question marks with Eric Pena. I think that's safe to say. I think he could be great, could be average, could be awful. Just a good, lottery ticket. A guy that you and I both mutually love that we just don't know what Miami's going to do here. Peyton Burdick, a guy that can hit, has hit, and will hit. Took a small dip last season in the batting average category. I think we'll see that recoil this year. So another guy to buy on the dip. And I'm going to mention this guy because he's close to our heart, Robbie, but also I think he's just going to be completely undervalued in every single format that he's in. And he's definitely a third, fourth, maybe even fifth outfielder in some deeper leagues. That's Kevin Pillar. I just think there's Value based on ADP with Kevin Pillar. He's going to go anywhere but the Mets this season, and that should immediately make him more valuable. So I think there's a buy there that, depending on your depth, could be a really cheap way to fill some numbers. We're going to get into some hypotheticals here really quickly. And you'll know these names, right? They fit some of the categories that Rob's mentioned. Petey Halpin is in Cleveland, was part of the Carlos Carrasco trade coming over, right? Or was he drafted?
No, he was drafted.
I'm getting the other guy. What's the other
2020 draft?
What's the guy, the outfield kid that came over?
Yeah, he was a 3-namer.
Wolf?
No, Wolf was the pitcher though that was in that deal. Oh wow, now I'm trying to remember. I'm forgetting.
You think about that. I'll keep going. We'll stick in Cleveland. Next guy up, George Valera. This is a guy I was ready to exit on, Robbie. Like, this is a guy that I was almost out completely on George Valera. He made some subtle swing changes, and the power got unlocked for me. I think very similar to Nelson Velasquez. I think we're going to see the hit tool take a step forward this year with Valera. And I think at that point, he's going to become an elite prospect instead of just a power prospect. Ahead of him, Pete Crow Armstrong, the Mets stole. I still don't understand that trade, if I'm honest with you. Or did the Mets? No, the Mets traded him. Where did he go?
I was going to say Pete Crow may have been the guy you're talking about.
Someone got stolen
in the Lindor trade. I think it was Pete Crow Armstrong.
Yes,
I'm double checking.
Right. Yeah. Either way, Pete Crow Armstrong was
Isaiah
stolen.
Green tie was the guy with the Mets.
That is the guy. Yep.
Pete Crow is still with Los Mets.
No, I don't think so. Pete Crow Armstrong was traded somewhere.
Really?
Please
My
look
apologies.
Look up Pete Crow Armstrong. I'm gonna move ahead. Austin Hendrick was a guy that we talked about in the 5-round draft. That's a guy that I think is absolutely gonna be a guy we talk about in future years, but he's still just way too far away. It is that simple. One of the guys that
Cubs tie. He's with the Cubs. There we go. I was gonna say it, but I had already been wrong.
Yeah. So that was the bias trade then. That's what it was.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. So
that went well for the Mets.
Dude. He actually finished really strong, to be blunt. It really wasn't as bad as it appears. But Hebert Perez is a guy that is a guy that everybody loves, and frankly, I just think he's overhyped. I think he could be good. He could be a major leaguer. I do not think he is as good as some of the other options that you can find where you would need to draft Hebert Perez. And I'm going to start to cross over into guys that you've already mentioned, Robbie. So yeah, I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit. The last guy that I want to just touch on really quickly here is Andy Pages in LA. This is a guy that, to me, is one of my favorite prospects in all of baseball. And nobody knows about Andy Pages.
Oh, they're talking now, Ty. They've been talking this offseason.
He only got mentioned because he was part of the Bruce Gratterall cluster trade screw up that happened with LA.
Amazing trade that didn't happen.
Yeah, but Andy Pages is like not like, if you pull up his headshot on Baseball Reference or wherever you look up headshots, I mean, he's not here for his good looks. Like, he is a radio style baseball player. So
wow, I'm already formulating what he should look. Yeah, no, you're right. I was already formulating what does a radio type guy look? Yeah, no, he does.
But he hit 31 home runs, and that is sexy last year in the Great Lakes High A League. So, the 933 OPS has some room for growth. There's real power here. He's still a little ways away. I do think he ends up being traded out of LA just because he's at the levels that he's at, and LA's window's kind of starting to close a little bit. So I think he might be a guy that they try to move to prolong it a little bit. But that's kind of the last guy I wanted to mention, Robbie. I mean, there's the obvious ones right on the bubble. Robert Hassel, Christian Pache, I think is a guy that we should note before we get into our 100 here.
A good major league player, but I don't think he's going to do what he's supposed to for fantasy owners. I think that's it.
I think was overhyped because he had the speed factor, but I do think there's actually a reasonable hit tool here. I don't think he's a power guy. I think he is going to be the reason the obvious outfielder in Atlanta, Acuna, has sustained success, because I think Acuna is going to get moved to a corner as early as this year. and I think Pache's the center fielder. So I think that carries value for Pache, and it's why I have him higher. I think he's just going to get at bats. I think it comes down to that.
Okay, well, yeah, and we've talked before about the importance of actually having opportunity, right? There's a difference if you can hold your own defensively, you've already taken on one of the biggest burdens for fantasy owners, which is, are they good enough to actually get at bats? And from that point on, it's what's the hit tool like? What can we expect for power, speed, blah blah blah, and then where are they in the lineup? And if in the lineup he's batting 8th or 9th now with the DH, that's going to hurt him more. But at the same time, he's still batting. And there's a lot of value to a guy who can get 500 at bats from the 9 hole versus somebody else who gets 350 from the 3 hole, and they're hurt most of the time. So anyway, hopping now into the actual top 100. And this was believe it or not, this was the most efficient way to do this episode because there are so many guys in the outfield with fantasy relevance. Pache was just outside. I'm going to go from 96 up to 100, and I'm just going to touch on 2 of these guys. 96, Travis Swaggerty with Pittsburgh. Hunter Bishop is 97 with San Francisco. Edward Olivares is 98 with KC. Helio Ramos is our 99th. And Anthony Garcia with the Yankees is our number 100. And right now, I know of those 5 guys, you're like, who in the sweet F is Anthony Garcia? 21-year-old former J2 signing who last year kind of came into his own, and albeit in only 121 at bats, 14 dingers, 15 stolen bases, 306 average with an 1122 OPS. So I'm just guessing here, Ty, that we have a breakout season in 2022 from Anthony Garcia. And that's why I put him where I did. And I talked to you about him and willed it to be that he ended up as our number 100. I just like the potential here. And I know it's the Yankees. And I've already talked about Elijah Dunham as another potential Yankee guy. Garcia's behind him. But the actual production that could come from a stolen base power bat with average, mind blowing. Just picked him up in a draft tonight. The same one that Juan Bin Cho was sniped on me in. I got him. Yes, I take it all personally because I effing love this. So the other guy is Edward Olivares. And you guys know who Edward Olivares is. Ty, we know Edward Olivares is a good baseball player. AAA stud. What we want is we want KC to just give him like left field, right field, center field, DH, give him a position and just leave him the heck alone and let him go get 450 at bats because he was good in 2020. He was up and down in 2021, and he had some of those hero moments, but then it was like, a day or 2 later, sent back down. Let the man play, KC. And because we don't know that that's actually going to happen, he is where he is. And if this ends up being somebody who's like Cleveland, should we call it that? They pull a Cleveland and just don't give him the opportunity until it's way too late, i.e. Bradley Zimmer.
Gives guys opportunities. They're just brutal at developing outfielders.
Well, I mean, Bradley Zimmer was given opportunity in 18 or 19 for 3 weeks.
Got hurt.
Yeah, he got hurt, and then we never saw him again. So anyway,
I mean, the rule of thumb in Cleveland is if they don't play shortstop, ignore them.
Yeah, and if they play shortstop, we'll just suppress them.
Figure out what position they're going to play after the logjam is cleared. That's the game.
Okay, that's fair. So anyway, those are the 2 kind of notable guys from that. Ty, you got 91 to 95?
Yeah, just really quick on Hunter Bishop, right? This is a guy that for me I exited on. I had some shares of him a couple years back and I got out, and I'm terrified of Hunter Bishop, to be completely blunt. Last season, injury plagued a little bit here and there, but 56 plate appearances. How many hits do you think he had, Robbie?
56 plate appearances. 20? No, that's
6. He had 6. Okay. So I'm concerned because his college career's never had an elite season with the exception of his final year at Arizona State, where he hit 22 bombs and hit 342. But his average prior to that, 233, 250, 219, 212, and then 299, with a combined 15 home runs in the previous 4 seasons, right? So right. I don't think there's as much elite talent here with Hunter Bishop as most people think. And so I'm throwing the caution flag up on Hunter Bishop. I just think there's recoil here. And we see this, we talk about it a bunch. As people get to the upper minors, they start to face some of that resistance. Helio Ramos, his teammate, I think is a slightly better version of Hunter Bishop, but I have similar concerns. Not as much, but I just don't think he's as elite as other people think he is either. So getting into 95 through 90, ironically, his teammate, Mike Yastrzemski, is a guy that I cautioned about heading into last season, Robbie. Like, this is not a guy that's going to be an MVP caliber guy that everybody thought he was going to just continue to be. And what do you know? He fell back to earth as expected. And that's the trend we'll continue to see. To me, Robbie, and you might feel differently, I'm taking Jalen Davis over Yastrzemski. And that's where I'm at. And I think that's why I'm comfortable putting Jalen Davis up there. But at the same time, Yastrzemski is going to get the default playing time to start. Right. That's just a given. He's earned at least a shot. I just don't think it's sustained. So ahead of him, you have Zach Veen a little bit higher than I do. It's not that I don't like Zach Veen. I think
30
I like
spots.
Zach Veen.
It's when they're going to appear, right? Like that's the difference with Veen.
I think I like Zach Veen more than you do. I just, at this point in the game, I don't have him as high because I just think he's further away. And Colorado's far away. I just think there's a decent crop of guys in like low A-ish with Colorado, and I think Veen's going to travel on that timeline, so that puts him 4 years realistically. Kyle Isabel, we mentioned briefly earlier in Kansas City. This guy's a guy, or Kyle Isbell, whatever it is. We don't do pronunciations here at Dingers. But Isbell's a guy I think is going to be maybe the sleeper of the year this year, Robbie. Like, I think this is a guy that could give it like very reasonable production with very, very late round drafting. And most people that own him in Dynasty know about Kyle Isbell, but I think there's just a lot of people that are unfamiliar with what he brings to the table. I think that's just where it's at. Luis Matos in San Francisco is a guy that made it into our top 100. I do not have him ranked, Robbie. Why don't you touch on Matos and why you have him up as high as you do? You have him at 85. You want to enlighten our friends and family?
Yeah, definitely. This is the fourth San Francisco outfielder, and we are only at 92 with him.
There's also no other outfielders beyond this point.
Oh, be kind. Be kind. But yeah, so the thing with Matos is that he's not close, but he's very professional. He's got a low K rate, which is great.
He has a website.
Does he?
No, it's just teasing.
Oh, I was gonna say, because when we get to Harrison Bader, I'm talk to you about a website. Anyway, but a low K percentage. He needs to hit high A, and he needs to keep rolling before everybody legitimately gets pumped up. But he has crazy hype right now, Ty, and that is one of the big reasons here. Is you can have him, and begrudgingly, I will give credit to Roto Ronnie, who likes to just treat these players like assets. And Luis Matos right now is an incredible asset to have in your dynasty leagues because he is worth a buttload in return right now without having yet proven his worth. We've already got a season of Zach Veen stealing a million bases, getting caught a bunch too, but production, Luis Matos has not yet shown us that other than percentage wise. And for that, you've got to go to Fangraphs to have a look through that stuff. But you can get a lot for him in trade. And that's one of the reasons why over the next 5 years, we're talking production. Part of the production is expected value. And right now he is really high up on expected value. So that's why I've got him where I do.
Yeah.
And why he ended up on that list.
And I'm not ready to rank him as high as that. Like if you're ranking him on an asset perspective, for sure. I completely agree. I just don't have him production wise valuable just yet. Which brings us to the next guy who's a really interesting production conversation guy. It's Brendan Davis in Chicago. I think, this comes down to, are we going to see Brandon Davis or Nelson Velasquez? Right. I think that's the conversation because we know we're going to see Ian Happ. We know we're going to see Jason Hayward. Right. So that other outfield position is one of nobody's free agent signing yet to be, or Nelson Velasquez and Brendan Davis, right? A lot of people think Brendan Davis is ready. I'm not one of them. I think we will see Brendan Davis later this season. I just don't think he's going to get the early season production I think a lot of people are hoping for. And what reason do the Cubs have to move any of their prospects right now? Like they have zero. Like they're going to be a dumpster fire this season. Although
I don't know
a fairly relevant fan, they're going to be Baltimore, right? They're going to have fantasy offensive production, and they're going to be a dumpster fire everywhere else. That's what I see.
I think one of the problems with Chicago is that as much like for what you're saying, like not wanting to be competitive, they went out and got Stroman. They actually have some ability to pitch, not great, but their division is also in a position that could give them the potential to be around a 500 team, which is not great when you want to turn the page because all that does is make you the mid 2000s Blue Jays, where you just consistently don't do what you should. You just chug along and you got a few guys. But like if Schwindel is real, if what's his nuts at third base can actually hit, yeah, thank you, Wisdom. If Nico Horner is solid at shortstop, if
I just
Magical
hope
can
on
spray the
fan
ball,
weekend
right?
he rolls out what's his nuts on the jersey.
What's his nuts? Yeah. If there was a fan weekend that I was part of, that would have to be my thing. What's his nuts? Because if I can't remember, that's the obvious one I go to.
I would just put Javi.
What? But anyway, so that's the deal with the Cubs on a whole, and I think there's like potential for them to be accidentally good,
I don't
that's going to
disagree,
slow him down.
Well, they brought in franchise mainstay Clint Frazier, so the sky is the limit.
You are right, Todd, but that's it. That's one of the reasons also, like we talked about plugs. I'm not going to say Frazier's a plug, like I referred to Kyle Garlick earlier, but those are the kind of guys that slow down the ascension that all the prospect hounds want to see, and Brendan Davis is affected by that. So
completely agree. Yep. So that kind of brings me through my guys. At Connor Joe, I'll pass to you at 90 because you're the president of the Connor Joe fan club. So I will let you have at it.
I think I've actually put 2 different posts on the website, robbybaseball.com, about him. And the one is just like a one sentence thing where it's like, I called the Connor Joe breakout. I mean, I did it in 2019, but I still called it. So I was only off by 2 years. But like, this is an OBP guy. This is an average guy. Like here's 2018 average in a full season at AA and AAA, 299 average. And that's when the turnaround happened. He also had the misfortune of being a Rule 5 pick, which is where I found out about him. He went to San Francisco for 8 games and got a hit. So he started his pro career, got a hit, and then ended up back with the Dodgers, who put him at AA and AAA for the rest of that year at AAA. He then batted 300. So he's got a 299 season, a 300 season. Then he didn't get on a team with I don't even know what the heck he did. He was in Cincinnati before all this happened. He moved around a bunch because he's now turning 29 for this season, but he went to Colorado last year, started the year in AAA, blew it apart in 92 at bats, 326 average, and then moved up to the big league club and got a decent amount of playing time until he was hurt. 179 at bats. He was playing every day in July and August. 285 average. He finished the year with an 848 OPS. He also, for the year, had 17 dingers, and that is in less than 300 at bats. There's potential here for 25. There's potential here for high average. And most importantly, for the guys that we like, potential to play. The DH is going to help him. Ty, you talked about before we started recording the fact that you think there's a way for him to get even more time because of the DH, where CJ Cron maybe takes a few more DH days. I like it. Everything that's being said is good as far as Connor Joe moving forward is concerned. And because he finished last year hurt, a lot of people are going to forget about the fact that he was efficient, which means we can go and inquire. If he's owned, you can go and inquire and say, hey, what's the deal with Connor Joe? And you're probably going to have to give up something you like. But I think it's probably going to be worth it because you do have the fact that he's playing in Colorado to fall back on. So if there is some regression, the fact that he's going to play half of his games in a massive park could actually help with that. So
completely agree.
Yeah, that's an advantage of Connor Joe. The other guys at 89, Jorge Mateo with Baltimore, I'll touch on. I'm also going to touch on Lars Nootbaar, who is at I said Mateo at 89. Mateo 89, Lars Nootbaar at 88, Kalal Lee with the Mets at 87, and at 86, Eddie Rosario, who's a free agent at the moment. Jorge Mateo is an interesting guy here. Now, this is somebody that I said to you, Ty, I'm taking a chance here because the line just doesn't look sexy. It doesn't. You don't see anything, and you're like, I love it, other than 10 stolen bases.
And I have a couple of notes here on Mateo too. And for me, his stock took a huge hit when they signed Rougned Odor, and it's not because I think Rougned Odor is better, but I think he's going to get playing time over Mateo that should have been Mateo's. So I think that, to me, they have shed long too. Yeah, well, they needed AAA depth.
What?
So yeah, you heard it. I'm still sore that he didn't reply to our Twitter, so he can
Yeah.
stuff it.
Well, that's why he's
Yeah,
in Baltimore. So
that's yeah. So we wish that upon him.
yeah,
But Mateo is a guy that I had to reconsider where I had him. I moved him back. A lot of like the boards have Kelvin Gutierrez playing third. I don't think that's
yeah.
realistic.
It's not. Yeah,
So, I think Mateo and Odor are going to split second base a little bit, but I think Mateo could slide to third. But either way, it got a little more congested than I thought it was going to be, and that's
yeah,
the issue for me. I think Mateo could be in our about 85 category, whereas he's just inside the 90s right now. I think he could be even potentially top 75, maybe. And I've said this before, Robbie. Like, I like Baltimore's offense. I think there's
yeah.
upside in Baltimore offensively. Now, if you're telling me I want to own Baltimore pitchers, I'm going the other direction on that one. But I mean, the offense is sneaky good in Baltimore.
I do agree. I think they will be able to put up runs. It's a matter of keeping them off the board, and you don't want to get into the 6 games if you're an MLB team. But if you're a fantasy owner, that means there's 15 runs.
Yeah.
So
We
things are
want
going
to
to
see
happen.
15-14. That's what we want.
Yeah, yeah. You want those 92, was it 92 against Atlanta where there was all those high scoring World Series games? Whatever
No,
it
that's
was.
Philly,
Anyway,
wasn't it? That was
was
the
it?
Philly
Oh, so that was
93.
93? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's how far back we have to go for glory as Canadians and Jays fans. Anyway,
I mean, at least
Jorge
we're not Leaf
Mateo.
fans. Oh, wait.
I'm not.
I
I
don't
was.
just as a shout out to all the Leaf fans that are listening. Montreal absolutely stuffed the Leafs tonight, 5-2. So suck it. That
I
is what it is.
abstained
Sorry.
from NHL talk. I scored 3 goals in beer league hockey last night. All right. So anyway, Jorge Mateo, I will say, Ty, to put a button in him, did have a 19 home run season in the minors. He can be a 250 average guy, and we already know that he can steal bases at the major league level. So it is not guaranteed as it is with other players, but there is potential here. So consider it. That's it. That's the advice here. Lars Nootbaar, AFL was huge for him last year. Also got a shot in the pros and did not fall flat on his face. Good for you, because that is tough to do. And you know what, Ty? In a prospect draft where anybody who previously was not owned or rostered, I should say, can be drafted. Lars Nootbaar went 10th overall. It was amazing. Yeah, my video just went out. That's okay. I can keep going here. He hit 300 in AAA. He does need to add something else to make him a more interesting fantasy guy because he's not big on runs and he's not a stolen base guy. So for fantasy owners, we can see average and we need something else. So that's going to be the issue with Lars Nootbaar. And then Kalali, I love him, Ty. I love him. And it's OBP related. It's stolen base potential. He's got a 53, I think, stolen base season under his belt. That was years ago. He also can hit for average, not super high, but 270 plus, and he can hit dingers, which means he has the potential to help everyone in all fantasy categories. But the pro debut sucked. And if you go and buy or do what you can to acquire him, draft him, whatever the scenarios in your league, you will not regret it because the price will not be so high that you're sweating bullets that you just, bit off more than you can chew in trade. But Kalali could come up with a Mets team that is, quote unquote loaded and do good things. So, like those are my guys in this little category here, Ty. I will sort out the video here for the live stream. So I'm going to exit and return promptly.
Yep. All good. So 86, we got Eddie Rosario, who World Series champion. Eddie Rosario is definitely of note. For those of you watching the live stream, you're getting my forehead while we wait for Robbie to come back in here. Eddie Rosario is an interesting guy because I think obviously the upside's there. We saw it in the playoffs. We've seen it in Minnesota at multiple intervals. I think we're going to continue to see production from an Eddie Rosario. We just don't know where it's going to be yet. I think, to me, I'd love to see him back in Atlanta. I think there was a great fit there. I think you bring the potential of Osuna, Acuna, obviously, and Rosario in that outfield with Pache as the fourth guy defensively. That's a really, really, really good outfield. Now, knowing Alex Anthopoulos as a Jays fan like we do, who's the GM in Atlanta, I just don't think that's how he's going to spend his money. I think he knows that he's going to have to spend it on Freddie Freeman, and I think that's where his focus goes. So I think Rosario is a free agent. I'd love to see him somewhere where he's going to take on some at bats. I just don't know where that's going to be yet, and frankly, I can't place him. I'm usually pretty good at putting a spot on a lot of these guys. I just can't figure out where Rosario potentially fits, and so that's an issue. Corey Dickerson is a guy left-handed stick. Played some time in Toronto last year, former Tampa Bay, Miami guy. If he could throw a baseball, I would love to see him back in Toronto. I think it's a great fit there. Toronto desperately needs a left-handed bat in the outfield. There's an obvious comparison there, but the problem is he plays absolutely terrible defense because he cannot throw to save his life. So that puts him in a predicament. I think he's got to find a spot where there's a DH at bats available. And in one interesting one that nobody's really mentioned, I think could be a good fit. I think Houston could be a really interesting fit for Corey Dickerson. Short left-handed porch. He can split the defensive innings with Yonder Alvarez. There's just a good opportunity there for him. And frankly, I'd like to see it. I think there's just a really good fit there. We've got Robbie's face back joining us here. This is the better version of Rob. He's got the radio face this evening.
Yes. I don't know. It says I've got something open that's using either my mic or my video, and I just closed everything I can. So I apologize for any live streamers and Ty who can't see me.
The gray profile photo is better for all the people that have eyeballs, so we're good. Drew Waters here in Atlanta. I think he's going to get the back of the bus conversation here. Given the depth that Atlanta has in the outfield, like Drew Waters could be the kind of guy that Anthopoulos, who has zero problem trading bubble prospects around. I think Drew Waters could be a guy that we see exited from Atlanta to solve another problem. And if Atlanta loses Freeman, which crazily seems like it could theoretically happen, which I cannot wrap my head around why they would want that. Waters could be the kind of guy that heads to an Oakland for a Matt Olson type replacement there. That's just a unique possibility that could happen there. Atlanta's not short on outfielders. So to me, I like Waters. I assume in my ranking, because I have him 65, Robbie. Robbie has him much further back at 93. I'm making the assumption in my ranking that he will be on another roster. So that is kind of where I have him. But ahead of him, Alec Thomas is one of the guys that I actually had a conversation with Robbie about before we started recording, that this was a guy that we definitely needed to pay a little more attention to. The hit tool's there, the power is there, and I do not understand for the life of me why people have Corbin Carroll ranked ahead of him. I just cannot do it. I do not understand it. I have no idea why Corbin Carroll's ranked ahead of Alec Thomas in almost every list I've seen. It doesn't make any sense. So I will fight people on that one. I'm 61. I think he's the most productive of the outfield prospects in Arizona right now, which includes Thomas, it includes Corbin Carroll, and it includes Christian Robinson as well. So I think that's kind of an interesting fit there. Ahead of him, Garrett Mitchell, college bat that is probably going to move relatively quickly. Robbie, you and I both have him ranked in the 70s. This is just a very mundane, mediocre prospect, but I think a major leaguer. And I think that's what makes Garrett Mitchell attractive, is that we're probably going to see him in the pros relatively soon. Brandon Marsh is a guy that has a sweet, very Jason Worth look about him. Beastly beard with a little bit of speed. I think between him and Joe Adell, these are two guys that have completely been forgotten about in the prospect world. They've just been underappreciated because you've had Trout there, you've had Justin Upton in that outfield. I think it's time to see Brandon Marsh, and I think we will see Joe Adell this season as well. In the realistic outfield that is best for Los Angeles is the two of those guys and obviously Mike Trout. That's a good fit. Lots like there. Anybody in that group, Robbie, that you want to touch on?
I'll do Garrett Mitchell here. Like Brandon Marsh came up and was just okay, and that's fine because it's better than being a flop like Joe Adell was. So Adell's got lots to prove. Marsh needs to level off, but Garrett Mitchell went to Wisconsin High A pro debut, which is an aggressive assignment, and raked 1,100 plus OPS, 360 average, 359, whatever, in 92 at bats. Then got the promotion, and not a full season from him, just to be clear, 220 at bats for the year, but 129 of those at Double A. Ty. Kid fell flat on his face. 181 average, 554 OPS. So slash those single or high A numbers, I should say, slash the high A numbers in half. And that's what Garrett Mitchell did up against higher competition. So that's why we're a little more hesitant than you might see him elsewhere. Because as Ty said, this could be more of a ho-hum guy than it is a home run guy. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And as far as Milwaukee outfield
It's so good that we
go,
can't see your face right now.
I know. Well, you know what? I pointed around the room just so anyone listening on the podcast, which again, thank you. Thank you for listening. We're an hour in and we are only at the 81 mark. So Garrett Mitchell is not even the top Milwaukee ranked prospect who, when we get there, I will discuss. Is it time, Ty?
Is he not next?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying it's the time. Am I good to go? So at 80, we have Joey Weimer, Weimer. Yeah, Awimoe. That's what the balls say when he hits it. I'm going Awimoe. Actually, I'm going a long way. And Joey Weimer
we missed our calling in broadcasting, I think.
Yeah. You know what we'd be good at? Like low, I'd say high A even. High A radio for a team. That's what it would be. Yeah, not college, because people listen to college, but no one's listened to high A radio.
I think we would be good on like the lowbrow side of college. Like if we didn't have to be professional,
like JUCO.
We could... no. I just mean like if there was like an alternate feed to college baseball where we could speak to college students directly,
like ham radio. If there was a ham radio, yeah. Okay, all right. So anyway, Weimer is, I believe, 22. Milwaukee drafted 2020 prospect. I think he was the 4th or 5th round guy. He's a power bat, 27 dingers last year in A and high A with a combined 290 average. I believe it was higher in high A than it was in A. Doesn't matter.
High A hit 336, 14 bombs.
Thank you.
Hit, guess what? 13 at A. He hit 27 home runs last year. And
Thank you. Thank you for repeating what I just said. So look for him to go right to Double A to start this year. And I absolutely foresee him passing Garrett Mitchell and ending the year in Triple A. And depending on what's up with his DH and injuries, and if he can continue to go, why wouldn't you just keep moving him? Right? Just move him on up and see what happens with this guy, because this is straight rake. And we're going to talk about another Milwaukee veteran who's returning this year, who put up a great great year-end numbers with Milwaukee, and I could see Joey doing the same thing here. Next up is Jake Fraley with Seattle. Fraley is a patient man, and I appreciate that about him. He can take walks. He can give you runs, RBIs, OBP is possible, but 450 plus at bats, that's where I'm not sure. So the question here is, are you able to roster him safely? You cannot count on him for 550 at bats without injuries and multiple injuries in Seattle. And that's going to really hurt a lot of the other areas within that team and players that are, counted on or we're relying on for next year's production. So if you're buying into Fraley, which I am, I've got him ranked in my 50s, but that's based on assumption of playing time, which is not at all guaranteed. Not at all guaranteed. But because of that, I think there's a good possibility. Somebody else who I think is going to probably have one more injury, and then it's going to be hard to roster them, especially in your dynasty leagues, is going to be AJ Pollock, who comes in at 78 for us with the Dodgers. He's been fine, but what's that saying? It is what it is with AJ Pollock. You just know something's going to happen. 77, we've got Nick Senzel with Cincinnati, and this is an important year for Senzel to actually be a guy, know what we can expect as fantasy owners. And at 76 is ya boy, Ty, Mickey Moniak, the 1-1 from the 17 draft, I think it was. And still rookie eligible thanks to not being good at baseball. But you believe in him. I have Jake Fraley at 57. You have Mickey Moniak at 57. That is a Twitter poll, my friend. Who would you prefer in Dynasty?
Well, and I think it's going to be Fraley. Like, in I get it. I really do. But that's the difference between winning championships and wishing you had Mickey Moniak. So Here's the reality of Mickey Moniak. Philadelphia doesn't have a lot of outfield depth. They need somebody that can play center field. Mickey Moniak's that guy. I like Mickey Moniak in center, and I like him hitting in the 9 hole, and that's why I have him higher, because I think he's going to, by default, have some gain in runs. It's an obvious opportunity to add to that conversation. So to me, he's going to get the 9 hole bump because the top of that lineup can produce. And so that's what I really like about Moniak. The other thing that I like is in the shortened 2020 season, I watched a lot of his at-bats, and I feel very similar to how I feel about Joe Adell in terms of this guy just has a sense of the game of baseball. He understands how to hit. And a guy, I'm not going to say he's a Hall of Famer, but a guy like Derek Jeter, who didn't do anything extremely flashy, but knew the moment, knew the situation. And I feel that way about Moniak as a hitter. I think he doesn't have the same power that maybe a Jeter did. And I think that's the big differentiator. So I just think you're going to get production and average and runs with Moniak. That's what I'm chasing here. And I just think the playing time is going to be there. So I think that's the kicker.
Yeah, entirely possible. Next guy up, though, Time, handing you over to this. This is the guy that can win you a week and then frustrate you for 4 of them. So, well, actually, you know what? A bunch of these guys. This next little crew here is a
I hate
crew.
that I have this section, to be honest.
Oh,
this
glad
section
I don't.
is not
Tell the
my
people.
Group. Yeah, this is not my group. Here's the thing. Adam Duvall is a sneaky productive guy. And a very underappreciated guy. Like, he hit 38 home runs, which is the 3rd time in his career that he's hit more than 30 home runs. Like, and very few people have that level of appreciation for an Adam Duvall. So in his full seasons, which he has, guess what? 3 of all 3 seasons, he has hit 30 home runs. So just think about that. That's all you really need to know about Adam Duvall. He's a sneaky productive guy, but he is also a little bit streaky. So 31 through 35, he's probably going to get the at-bats in Atlanta that I was talking about while Robbie was trying to figure out his video. He's going to play. And so this is a guy that is very underappreciated, and people need to start appreciating him. And I think he's on the backside of his peak, so we should see another 30 home run season or 2 in that window. So don't be shy. A guy ahead of him who's certainly not shy when it comes to performance-enhancing drugs, Ramon Laureano. This is a guy that I didn't understand why he was good. Now I do.
But Ty,
cheated.
they're not testing. They're not.
I know he's
this
not.
Year.
They're not.
So
testing
he's back, baby.
Yeah, I mean, he just skyrocketed up the list, as did his white blood cell count. But
whoa, getting technical.
so here's the thing with Laureano. I still don't quite see the long-term value. I think he's going to be ho-hum. He's going to play. He does play great defense. Absolute candidate in center field from the throwing perspective. There's no reason. I think the trading of a Chapman and Olsen actually enhance his value because he could get middle of the order at bats, which is super valuable. I'm not going to own him anywhere, Robbie. I'll be blunt, which is weird because I own all the steroid guys. This is one that I'm not.
He's the one where you're like, not going to do it.
Yeah. I mean, he missed the cutoff on that throw that I keep having to watch on MLB TV.
Oh, my God. That was so frustrating watching that over and over.
Hit the cutoff. Like be a team player here. So
and why is that a highlight? It's a highlight because he got somebody out. It's not a highlight from any coach's perspective.
No, I mean, the guy running the bases is an idiot.
Right.
That's the piece of the puzzle that matters. But nobody talks about that piece. They're just like, oh, this guy threw it as far as that major league player should be able to throw it. Cool. But anyways, next on the list,
not bitter.
I've just seen that highlight too many times. It's that simple. But guy ahead of him, JJ Bleday. What do they call him? Barrel Bleday? Is that him? I got that one right.
They call him, thank goodness for the AFL Bleday, because his regular season in 2021 sucked at AA, but thank God he saved it with 95 at bats, which is a ton at the AFL.
Yeah, JJ, don't call me Peyton Burdick Blade. Is that what we're going with? But anyway,
Sure.
no, Blade's a major league player. I mean, he hits. He's going to hit, and cool. He had a struggle. Buy. It's a buy. It's not a reason to run away. I do think the one thing that it did for me, Robbie, and I think it shows in our difference. You have him 58, which there's zero wrong with having JJ Blade at 58 for the record. I have him at 88, and I backed him up purely on the fact that he struggled last season. Like I think he's better than 88 on my ranking. We have him at 73 collective. I think he's a top 50 guy that you should envision. Yeah, but I just have him at 88 on where I think production's going to be in 5 years. So I think talent-wise, he's way ahead of that. I think reality, he's right where we got him. Very similar to our next guy, who is a major leaguer, but had a very similar kind of prospect trajectory as Willie Calhoun. The difference for me, Willie Calhoun is a power guy. Blade is more of a contact guy. I think Willie Calhoun, from a power perspective, is going to be one of the more underappreciated power assets this offseason. I think you can go get him in a lot of formats and win 20 to 25 home runs for very little investment. And that, as we know, that Texas lineup got a lot better. So Willie Calhoun's no longer expected to hit 1, 2, or 5. He's going to hit 6 or 7 probably. And really fly under the radar and get himself into some good at-bats. So that's what I like about Willie Calhoun heading into the season. Similar to Clint Frazier, like Clint Frazier can still play baseball. I've invested in Clint Frazier in a lot of formats. I really think that he is going to have success in Chicago. I don't think anybody believes New York was a good situation for Clint Frazier. And to me, that's the big situation here, is that he's out of that clubhouse and that front office that clearly didn't understand what Clint Frazier needed to succeed. It's up to Clint Frazier now to decide whether he can be successful in another environment. I think he's going to be. I think him and Marcus Stroman are going to be out there just being bros. And I think that's completely a scenario that both of them.
I had not considered that fact. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're the same person, right? They're the complete opposite in terms of, like, one's a ginger and the other one is like a hustle art guy. Yeah, like, I mean, they're completely different people in that regard. But in terms of, like, their egos, like, that is just going to be an absolute cluster. Like, there's going to be YouTube videos of best friends, like, so happy together. Yeah, that's going to be all over that. But, I mean, it's going to be something that I hope they twist the knife on in terms of New York letting them go, which just brings us to our next guy, Robbie.
Well, I'm just going to go back really quickly. Willie Calhoun lost.
Don't kill my segue, though. At least give my segue some life.
Okay. I apologize. Sorry. So let's repeat. Let's pretend that we're going to edit this.
Yeah.
Give your last line. 3, 2, 1.
So Clint Frazier, I hope, really twists the knife on New York letting him go, which brings us to our next guy.
Tommy Pham, everybody, who has agreed to take, because he's a free agent, he has agreed to take it's not an opportunity. He's agreed to take on the challenge of first base, which to me suits the fact that he is going to continue to reduce his stolen base potential as he ages, and he's also given up on average in an attempt to sell out for power. The trick here is, as a dynasty owner, you actually have to make the decision for yourself. Do I believe that Tommy Pham is going to successfully do that? I, like me or Robbie Baseball, do not. And that's one of the reasons why I was happy to make that Mitch Haniger versus Tommy Pham bet last year with Roto Ronnie, who lost. But I would like to now go back, Ty, because I was patient. I did the transition. Nobody knows it didn't happen because I'm sure you'll edit this out. But Clint Frazier actually did something really incredible. He struggled mightily for 5 years for at-bats with the New York Yankees, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. He got limited play, never exceeding 225 at-bats in any of the seasons. But his OPS from 17 at 715 rose in 18. It rose again in 19. And it peaked in 2020 in 131 at bats. He had a 905 OPS. This is a ball player. The average in the 260s consistently, but the collective of his 707 major league at bats gives him a 239 average. That's hard to do when you are consistently in and out of the lineup. You don't know what's going on. Aaron Hicks gets hurt, right? I made that example earlier. And all of a sudden you've got playing time, but then they find some dude off the waiver wire and you're gone. And that must be very difficult for him. OBP has not been a big issue for him, but it's been kind of back and forth. In 18 and 20, he had peaks of near 400. But I really like the idea of Clint Frazier just getting playing time. And with playing time, I think we'll see he's actually a power hitter and he can run. Now, he's not going to get a ton of stolen bases, but he's probably going to create the ability to get runs because he's moving around the base pass really well. So I believe in Frazier. I think his stock is low enough. If you also do a lot of redraft, a lot of NFBC stuff, Clint Frazier is probably going to be a bargain in that format more so than in your dynasty leagues, because people like Ty are going to be saying, well, he's still good, so I'm not going to give him to you. And you're not going to necessarily want to pay that price. But if you also do redraft, maybe you dip your toe in the redraft for this year and then realize midseason, you know what, I do want to pay that price we talked about earlier. So unlike a Tommy Pham, who you're just going to let go, Mark Canha is a Met, and he is going to be perfectly fine as a Met, and that's why he's ranked at our number 69 guy. Jorge Soler saved his season, not his career, but saved his season by that move to Atlanta last year, and I think he's going to stabilize himself there. I think he's a top 40 outfielder because he's, I believe, going into his age 29, or maybe it's his age 30 season. I will very quickly have a look at how old Jorge is.
Just really quickly while you're doing that, like the big concern for me with Soler is that he's had 2 trades in his career and seen immediate bumps after those trades. Like people forget, like after the trade to Kansas City, he hit 50 home runs, right? Like, I mean, he had a phenomenal season.
Oh, it wasn't after, Ty. It was like, what, 2-3 years after? 3 years after he'd been in KC.
That's after.
Okay. All right, fine. Yeah, okay, you're right. He was with the Cubbies and he just couldn't get it together. 5, 10, and 12 home runs. Then he went to KC, had 2 home runs, had 9 home runs, then had 48 home runs.
In limited at bats, asterisks.
He just wasn't an average guy with KC. That was the issue.
But he's never been an average guy.
Well, I was just last year with Atlanta, he got back into the 260 range, which is what he was in 18 and 19 when he was more relevant. Because in 18, I remember people being like, he's so good, he hits it so hard, he this, he that, but he just isn't getting the dingers, and he only had 9 in 223 at bats. Give the guy a full season. Yeah, exactly.
Crazy power, no questions. Like, here's the thing: like, if you look at his career numbers, like 3.6 in the WAR, 246 in the batting average. But a shocking 111 OPS plus, right? So sneaky value to baseball, not necessarily to fantasy owners, right? Because it comes with strikeout numbers. OBP is okay at best. Slug is a good number. Career OPS just under 800 though. So like he's good, not great, right? And definitely not consistent. And I think that's the takeaway from a Jorge Soler. He like very much can be the kind of guy that lights your team on fire. But here's our Twitter poll to go with Jorge Soler. Do you take him or do you take number 66 on our list ahead of him?
Okay. Wow. Okay. So before that, Soler is at 68. Jared Duran with Boston is at 67. Randall Grichuk with Toronto is at 66, and that is who Ty is talking about. Now, Grichuk, we know, has done some offseason work on his swing. He's trying to do this thing where he doesn't strike out and suck a whole bunch. And Jorge Soler is in the same boat, but he just did it, last year when the trade happened to Atlanta, and he was better. So Jared Duran, I have a note on him, Ty. I believe he's got 2020 potential. I think it's a real thing.
How did I rank Jared Duran ahead of you? How did this happen?
I don't know. What do you want me to say?
I don't know. It's kind of world.
I don't know, man. I don't know. My question, well, maybe this is why. My question is he a 240 hitter or is he a 270 hitter? Because I think his floor is Robbie Grossman when he gets regular playing time. And I know that doesn't sound great to the average person, but if you'll notice, we have not yet said Robbie Grossman. And when we get there, I'm going to gush and tell you why. So as far as Randall Grichuk, I mean, I know we've been criticized about liking liking him in years past when it didn't come together, or him having a hot start and then fading, and the numbers are kind of not skewed, but it looks better than it is. So, Ty, do you have anything to say on your Grichuk love? I will put the poll out because I did already put the first one out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it comes down to Grichuk being traded, which I'm basing my rank, which is much higher than yours. You have him 87, I'm 45. Like, I have him as a more valuable player than most, and this is because he's so underappreciated. He cashes way more RBIs than people realize. I don't have the exact number in front of me. I'm going to pull it up really quickly here, but like, I think. What do you think Grichuk had? And you know this better than most, so it's a bit of an unfair question. Like, what do you think Grichuk's RBI total was last season?
I'm going to say he was somewhere in the 50s for runs and low 70s for RBIs.
So he's 59 runs and 81 RBIs, right?
Okay, so
But to
RBIs were
most
higher.
people,
Yeah,
yeah, but to most people, like, he's a backup outfielder, right? Like,
fourth outfielder for sure.
those are third outfielder numbers, right? Like, they are, and the RBI totals almost are outfield too, right? So like that's where I just he has an underappreciated value. Like OBP 281, not great, right? Like that's just not what you get with Randall Grichuk. But if you need to fill power and you need to fill RBIs, like Randall Grichuk can bring you value, and in points, I like him a lot. I just think he wants out of Toronto. Like Toronto would be happy to move him if they can get the right asset. And so I think that's why I have him just a touch higher. That's really what it comes down to.
Sure. And
Ju-
that's,
Go ahead.
you know, that no, just that's where we are sitting at the belief. But the next crew, there's only one player I have any interest in, and I look forward.
I love this group because this is a bunch of just grinder guys like Lamont
Yeah, like
Wade
they're
Jr.
on grinder.
Yeah, like Lamont.
I don't know. That's not an
Jr. That's
insult.
not fair at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. Nah, I'm canceled.
Yeah, Lamont Wade Jr. in his entire group. Anybody called like late night Lamont is always going to get a peak from me. Because I mean that's the nickname he's been given. Because of his late night pinch hitting that he did so successfully in San Francisco last season. This is a guy that I owned in Minnesota. I've owned him in San Francisco. He's a splits guy. Like it's 100% what it is. He rakes against the righties, and there's value there. A left-handed bat that can hit right-handers, love it. And he's done it better than anybody else. I do think this season, though, given the depth issues in San Francisco, I really firmly believe that he's going to get more at bats against the lefties this year. So we're going to see that tested. I will say this, Robbie. I think this right now is the peak of Lamont Wade Jr. I don't think there's like some sort of growth trajectory here. Like this is the top of his career numbers and production wise. So next year, he should be much further back in our list, unless all of a sudden he decides that he's an elite lefty on lefty hitter, which is I don't expect. Guy has a very similar profile who I actually have ranked further back. Trent Grisham in San Diego. I'm concerned about Trent Grisham's playing time. I'll be honest with you. I think there's a good baseball player here, a decent defensive center fielder. I just think there's a lot of depth in San Diego. And frankly, Trent Grisham hasn't done enough so far in his career to say, I'm the guy, get out of my way. I just don't think that's who he is or where he's going. I have concerns. I'm not ready to say he's going to go the other direction yet, but something I'm monitoring closely. Enrique Hernandez, or Kike Hernandez, as most people know him. This is a guy that is easily one of the most underappreciated baseball players in the game today. Very productive season in Boston last year, playing a lot of time in center field, which is incredible considering he played second base for the most part of his LA Dodgers career. I think Boston has just allowed him to be an everyday player, and they benefit from that. They spent a lot of money. I think a lot of people were surprised with the contract that Kike got. And he has not let Boston down in the short time he's been there. I like him to be productive, very similar to Lamont Wade Jr. I think this is also peak Hernandez. So a guy that, should be heading backwards, but if you're in championship mode, a guy that you might want to buy. Next up here, Victor Robles, who was everybody's favorite. Like, this is going to be the center fielder of the future. The powers are going to develop. The speed's going to stick. Neither of those have really happened. This is a post-hype guy for sure. No questions, Robbie. I've got him much higher than you do. Still just, what is he, 24, 25? He's still very, very young, right? This is a guy that I think is going to become a household name this season in terms of fantasy baseball. I think the hit tool is too good for him to be as bad as he has been. And I really think that Washington lineup is going to be a little bit retooled this year. I'm excited to see Robles take a step forward. I would be, frankly, more excited for Robles to go to a different organization because I really think that he could benefit from a second hitting approach. Just 25, Robbie has confirmed for me here. I can't get my normal cues because he's not on the video. But he's
So I just
there.
make the font gigantic.
Yeah,
on
I
the
saw that he
screen.
put bold on, which I'm super impressed that he knows where bold is.
Oh.
But we're good there. The last guy in my grouping here, Robbie, is Chris Taylor, who I'm out on everywhere. Like his value is just way too high. And frankly, the value comes from the fact that in most leagues he's listed at like 3 or 4 positions, and that's super valuable in a lot of ways. But the price you have to pay to get Chris Taylor with position eligibility is just, it's like rent in New York. It's just too damn high.
And he's 31 as a multi-position eligible guy. So whereas you're taking Robles, and we talk about 5 years, right? In 5 years, Victor Robles will just be touching 30, which is a year younger than Chris Taylor is going to play this season at. So there's a lot of things that can change within that. The only guy in this group I have any like general or specific, I guess I should say, not general, specific interest in is Lamont Wade Jr. And I credit you, Ty, for opening my eyes to the fact that the reason why he popped onto radars is because of the fact that he just does what he does well. But he had a great 2022, new power, really sold out for it. And San Francisco might just allow him to do it because he played 90 games in the outfield. He played 20 something like that at first, especially after Brandon Belt was hurt. I think he just took over at first base. But in AAA, limited at bats, 45 at bats, did nothing special, 3 dingers, then plays rest of the season up in the show, 335 at bats, 336, sorry, 18 dingers, career high numbers, but not career high at bats, which, and I mean, he was not close. His previous career high was an 18 at AA and AAA. He had 11. So we know exactly what happened, right? He's like, I've got an opportunity, swing for the fences, and that's what I'm going to do. Because he was an equal strikeout to walk guy the bulk of his career up to this point in time, which surprises me that I didn't know more about him. But that's exactly what happens when you don't have anything else spectacular. The fact that you're walking roughly the same number of times that you're striking out, and your batting average ranges in the 290s, 5 and 6 years ago. But then when you get into like 18 and 19, it's a 240, 250 type hitter. That's not great. And your OBP being good is okay, but you're a minor leaguer at that point in time, and we're not banking on that. And a few cups of coffee with Minnesota in 19 and 20 just didn't do it. So he moves to a new organization, a manager who's aggressive, playing within his own head.
Yep.
And this is what happens. So this is bottled energy, right? Only entering his age 28 year. I think this is sustainable. I don't know how long, but when you are going into your age 28 year, I think you've got the opportunity to do more. And surprisingly, you have ranked him higher than me, Ty, but it sounds like I like him more, or at least his potential to do more for longer. But Chris Taylor, I have just given a higher ranking to. He's in my mid 40s simply because I don't see how the Dodgers and Dave Roberts are just not going to find at bats and ways in which, very much like Lamont Wade, ways in which
Well,
to
they
be
spent
successful.
a lot of money on Chris Taylor, so they're kind of forced to do so.
Now he's
Like
getting
Lamont,
paid.
like Wade Jr. is always going to hit the righties. Like that's just a fact. Like he rakes that way. Very similar to your boy Mike Brousseau against the lefties. Like he's a more versatile version from the other side, which is interesting. Which is why I have more. I think his value actually is hurt by the introduction of the DH. I think that's going to limit his at bats if he can't hit the lefties. So I think early on this year he's going to be forced to try. And that's going to be a true test of his longevity, to be blunt.
I think that's fair. So moving into our top 60, holy smokes, Ty, we're 90 minutes in. We got 60 guys to go.
Let's go.
Julio Rodriguez with Seattle is at 60. There is basically a difference in Ty and I of 99 spots in the rankings, and it has everything to do with when we think Julio will arrive. Jesus Sanchez is next up with Miami at 59. 58, we have Raimel Tapia with Colorado. His story is very simple. He's in Colorado. He has average. He has stolen base potential, and that's it. You're not going to see runs and RBIs. You're not going to see 80-80, nothing like that. Dylan Carlson with St. Louis is at 57. Avisel Garcia at 56 with Miami. I have an issue with Garcia, and that is that he is going to be in players' way like Jesus Sanchez, who is at 59. And I have ranked Jesus Sanchez way back. He is 98 for me. And one of the big reasons, and Ty, you talked to me about this beforehand. You tried to say, I need to rethink this, is I don't know that the playing time is going to be there because of veterans like Garcia. I don't want it to be an issue, but I'm concerned. And because of that, I am pumping the brakes a little bit. Whereas with Julio, I've got him ranked 14th, and you've got him ranked outside the top 100. So are you thinking we just don't see Julio in 2022, and that's a big part of this? That's 20% of his potential production right there.
I think it actually has less to do with Julio Rodriguez being good at baseball and more to do with the depth that the Seattle outfield has. Like, I just don't
Which is great right now.
Yeah, I just don't think it makes them that much better to run the kid out there. And I think for that reason, they're going to hold him back. Like, I think they're going to want at-bats for Kalenic. They're going to want to use Haniger for as long as they can before they don't re-sign him. And I think they've got enough depth to fill that third spot between a handful of guys. So I don't see, outside of an injury-plagued season for the Mariners, a reason for them to rush Rodriguez. Now, if he comes out and he hits 25 home runs in AAA in the first, 45 days, yeah, you gotta move him, right? Like, that's just a reality. But he's gonna have to do a lot. And the fact that he only hit 13 home runs last year, like, if I'm Seattle's front office, I need him to hit the gym. I want to see 20 home runs in AAA before he hits the pros. I think that's the last piece of his growth, because the hit tool's there. Like, the rest of the skill set's there. It's the power that just has yet to develop. He only had 13 home runs last year. So that's my big hesitation, is I think we're 1 year away.
And that, again, because we just need to stress this, we are talking about MLB production, and we do, of course, take trade value in, as I talked about with Matos, but you can weigh it, as Ty and I do. How much do you want to give to that value for a player versus how much do you actually expect in production? A championship team will possibly have Rodriguez, but will not be banking on him.
Correct.
Right? So, all right, Ty, 55 through. Let's do it.
Yeah, Hunter Renfroe, I'm not going to waste a lot of time. Reasonable defensive outfielder. I love the landing spot for him in Milwaukee. Like, I love him hitting like 5 in that lineup. I really do. I think it's huge value jump for him. I have him this far back purely on the fact that he's 34 and his days are kind of numbered. So this is a guy that I think could very easily hit 30 home runs in Milwaukee this season. So love Hunter Renfroe for the next 2. Very concerned about Hunter Renfroe for the following 3. That's kind of the big point there. Anthony Santander, I have 43rd. Robbie, you have him at 69. Nice. This is a guy that I think is very undervalued right now. I think if you and I are as Blue Jay fans and fans of the AL East, we see Santander more than most fantasy analysis. And frankly, he's one of the more underappreciated players in baseball. He had an injury last season. People have completely forgotten about this guy. I think he is, after Trey Mancini, the best hitter on the Baltimore Orioles. And that's saying a lot, because Ryan Mountcastle is a very good player. That's just, I think, where Santander fits. He's not going to hit 45 home runs, which Mountcastle very easily could do. But I do think he's a better hit tool guy, and I think he brings more to the team in the next year or so as Mountcastle evolves. So just a guy that I think in most formats is underappreciated. So I really wanted to hit on that. Jock Peterson, I can't put my finger on Jock Peterson. I love that he's a free agent. He's outside of Atlanta. He's outside of LA. I think he's going to go find somewhere that has a short right field porch. And I think he's going to rake. I actually would love to see him in Baltimore, to be 1,000% honest. I don't think that's where he ends up. He could potentially find his way to Boston, which would be a really interesting spot for him, following Kike Hernandez with a reasonable right field porch. That would mean Schwarber is certainly not an option in Boston, which I don't think he ever was. It would mean Verdugo is going to go to left field, which I think would be interesting. And it certainly would make that lineup a lot better. I think it would be a relatively cheap signing for Boston, given the production, and I've ranked him accordingly, that he's going to get some good at bats. I'm at 38. Robbie, you got him way further back at 72. My big reason is there's clearly skill there. There's good defensive ability. I think a new hitting coach is going to unlock Jock Peterson. So I'm betting on that breakout a little bit that way. Ahead of him, Andrew Benintendi is a guy that I've said would be better in Kansas City. He was. The big thing for me is that there was just complete absence of power. It's not even close to being potential breakout. Like, we're just not seeing it. I like Andrew Benintendi. I would add him to my actual baseball team in real life. We would destroy in our over 30 league, even though he's just 27 and wouldn't qualify. But at best, I think there's still a 310 hitter here. I think that's upside in the outfield as very safe kind of guy, just to give you medial production across the board. So that's what you're getting with him. Robbie Grossman is just such an interesting guy, Robbie. You've got him at 38. I'm at 72. OBP, power, playing time, all great assets for Robbie Grossman. It scares me. He scares me so much because I've only ever seen him on the bench in my mind, and that's why I have him a lot further back at 72. Again, you're at 38. I'm not there. Anybody in that group you want to touch on real quick?
Yeah, well, I'll start with Grossman. He's good, and I know, I get it. But 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases, 88 runs, 67 RBIs gives so much to you that you can just forgive a 240 average. He also had almost 100 walks last year. So format dependent, points leagues, this is a guy. If you are OBP, he's doing it. If you're counting strikeouts, I think he had almost 150 or something like that, to his 100 walks. So you're giving and you're taking with that. But Detroit's just going to throw him out there again. And yes, Detroit has other players with potential to do good things. Victor Reyes could be doing good things next year. Akil Baddoo, Riley Green, and we're all in and around that area on our rankings with those guys. So we've got 4 for 3 positions, but we also have a guy like Robbie Grossman who is actually playing for a contract this year because he signed, I think it was a 2-year, $8 million deal entering his age 32 season. Ty, when appropriate, you lean on the contract year. I believe Robbie Grossman has settled with Detroit and likes it. I could see an extension here. Victor Reyes, who is the next guy up at 50, is nothing special when you compare him to Robbie Grossman. He is a guy, so it's kind of like, who between these two guys would you like? And although Reyes is 5 years younger, you want to see exactly what they can both do head to head this year.
Really quick, Robbie Grossman has this year. I thought he has a player option though.
I thought he signed as a free agent with a 2-year, $8 million. Because I remember saying, why did they do 2 years? And now I see why.
10. It's 2-year 10.
Yeah, a 2-year 10. Okay.
Yeah.
And then so that's the deal with him. Is it's like an ugly good. Like, I think he's so much more valuable when you remove the name and just look at what he's actually done for your fantasy team than when you're like Robbie Grossman. And a part of that is that his name is Grossman. And that just doesn't look good. As far as Hunter Renfroe goes, this is a 30 dinger, 90-90 type guy who fell into a division winning team, a pile of runs team. And I think they're going to turn around and do it again this year. And with the DH, that just makes him so much more valuable to me, as far as I'm concerned, because that no longer means you need to stick him in left, right field and cross your fingers that something can happen. Talk about him taking reps at first base in spring training. Hunter Renfroe can just be a DH, very much like a Nelson Cruz, and that's okay. That's one of the benefits there is there's a guy who could just extend his career. So those are the 2 dudes to really touch on in that group.
I love that trade for Milwaukee. I'm not gonna lie to you. That was a phenomenal trade.
Both teams won their division. So
yeah.
hard to argue too much on that one. So now we're into the top 50 here. So at 50, we've got Victor Reyes with Detroit, as I just mentioned. At 49, Riley Green with Detroit. Oh wow, there's actually 4 Detroit outfielders in a row here, dating back to 51. So at 48, we have Akil Badu. And 47, Lane Thomas with Washington, and 46, Austin Hayes with Baltimore. Thank goodness for all those Austin Hayes prospect hoarders who kept him long enough to get a little bit of a return. I hope you still have him, because the good returns should keep coming for you. Lane Thomas, Ty and I differ a little bit on him, but overall, it's good news. Lane Thomas is going to get on base. He's going to get driven around. And as soon as he was traded, Lane Thomas became a good major league player. Moves out of St. Louis, leads off, gets on base, has now has the potential for 15 dingers, potentially 10 stolen bases. I'm stressing that a little bit. And if you can hold a 270 average, those runs are almost guaranteed when you've got the rest of that lineup, as well as, as much as they should progress. But if you can have a Soto and a Bell there next year, you're going to see Lane Thomas just take off. And if you don't believe in it long term, but you see it coming and you like what you see, well, then get him and trade him. Get him this offseason and move him, because you don't think he's going to be able to sustain that. And that's fair. Akil Badu, we talked about it in the offseason before. None of his numbers look good enough. He didn't hit enough 15s and 20s that it looks good, but we know there's more promise there. But as we now see, there are 4 legit outfielders all bunched up right now. And realistically, you can always have an outfielder become your DH. But in Detroit, Miggy's going to be hanging out for a little bit at the DH spot. So that'll be tight. And Victor Reyes fell on his face, I think went down to AAA and got hurt or something to that degree. He didn't have a full season of at-bats, but he came back up in August, September last year and finished okay. And thank goodness, because Victor Reyes, a Rule 5 pick, helps us when we talk and obsess, as some people have said. You obsess about the Rule 5 draft. Well, that's because talent is available, and Victor Reyes is a former Rule 5 guy. So we're good with that. And yeah, that's it. That's the high 40s, Ty. You got the mid to low.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Max Kepler here at this point, which, German-born player, rare in Major League Baseball. This is a guy that I think everybody wanted to be better and just hasn't really sustained that success. Like, I like what Max Kepler can be. He just hasn't been that guy, and I'm starting to fall back. I have him at 64, you're at 36, Robbie. I like him going the backwards direction, which is why I like some of the other Minnesota outfielders. Austin Martin, we talked about earlier, could steal Max Kepler playing time later in the season. So that's my big concern with Kepler, is he's got to have that breakout in the first part of the season where he's going to lose at bats very fast. He's in his age 28 season, so he's no longer like, we're patient, we'll wait for him. Skills there, all the physical abilities there. It's just we need sustained success, and we haven't seen it. A guy that did have sustained success, and we're on the backside of that, Charlie Blackmon. I still can't believe he's a Colorado Rocky.
Yeah, crazy.
This is a guy that is destined for Toronto. Give me a left-handed at bat.
You've been talking about that since there was like the apparent Stroman for Blackmon once upon a time in Toronto.
Which is the biggest mistake that front office has ever made. Like, production, what we could have got from Blackmon instead of what we got for Stroman. Like, I mean, it did turn into Jose Barrios, so it's hard to argue with it. But Blackmon is a left-handed bat that I appreciate, because he brings 4 or 5 category like sustainability. Not elite, not it doesn't excel in any one category, but this is a guy that was once ranked in most top 15 fantasy rankings, right?
And a redraft top 10, perennial type guy with Arenado and when with Tulo there. It was last year was the first time we saw a significant batting average dip and OPS sub 800.
Yeah,
so
but it's also the first time in a decade that he hasn't been surrounded by good players, right? Like,
I was gonna say, if we're starting to see a recoil, it doesn't mean that we're going to consistently see, the 270 become 260, become 240. That's not what's happening.
Yeah. I just like him as a buy, knowing that there's a 0% chance he finishes the season as a Colorado Rocky, right? So like that's what I like him as. You're buying him now on his current value, knowing that he's probably going to end up in a good situation come playoff time in your league, right? So that's part of why I have him ranked at 44, because he's 34. Like he's got a sustainable back end of his career, but with the introduction of the DH in the NL, like his 5-year window is no longer concerning to me. So I like that. A guy next up here is a guy that broke out last year, Adolis Garcia. Crazy good pop. I have concerns about like eliteness, but I like the fact that he plays good defense and that the power is very real. So I'm gonna bet on him in home runs and RBIs. I'm not willing to write him as a 5 category guy yet. Uh, Maybe he grows into that given a deeper lineup this year in Texas, but I do like him to sustain some home run upside and RBIs given that lineup. So I've got him ranked a little higher than you, Robbie, because of that. And I like that. Ian Happ, very similar kind of guy. I love what I saw out of Ian Happ in the last month of the season, right? Like very much back to what we wanted Ian Happ to be most of last season that he just frankly wasn't. Love that he's going to, in most formats, be a center field and second base eligible player. And that to me puts him in the top tier. I've got him a touch higher than you do, Robbie. I'm going to give a little flexibility there, but I love the OBP. I love the power here. I think there's just a talent here that could potentially be traded this offseason still, which would be interesting. 41, we've got Josh Lowe, a guy that's coming into his own here.
Well, he's Joshua.
Yeah.
So Joshua Lowe prospect with Tampa. Just to be clear, there's a bunch of Lows. I just wanted to.
Well, I mean, what we really want is them to plant a big old bush and a bunch of plants in the outfield so we can have the Joshua tree become a thing for Tampa Bay. But
Kiermaier would run into it and break a leg.
True, which would be good.
Dive into it.
Yeah, as fantasy owners, like Kiermaier is a great baseball player, period. Kiermaier kills fantasy value in that Tampa Bay outfield because he's not a huge category killer. That would open doors. But anyway, point is Josh Lowe is a good baseball player, and he just needs some time to get some at bats, and we'll be laughing. So Josh Lowe's the guy we like to grow this season. I don't see a path like immediately out of the gate for him. Kiermaier is for sure the bottleneck for Josh Lowe. I keep saying Lau because it's just so natural now.
Or Margot Manuel. Or Manuel Margot. However you wish to say it.
I don't see Margot as much of a hurdle as the rest of the group, but you've got
but Tampa Bay just doesn't get rid of him. That's the issue.
But Austin Meadows is realistically the first baseman this season, right? Like
DH really.
Yeah, but moving to first base, like that's how this plays out. So that
I'd be okay with that, but
I think everyone else will be too, including Tampa Bay, because it blocks Andy Diaz's hand to Choi from stealing at bat. So I mean, I think everybody's okay with this, but the reality is that he needs to find some outfield at bats. But it's a very interesting group here, a lot of upside, but also some concerns. So anything you want to touch on in that group?
Yeah, dynasty owners out there, if you're in an OBP league, Charlie Blackmon's still your guy. OBP around 350. That lock that in, right? You're good with that. Ian Happ, you're higher on him than I am. I've got some concerns about Happ average. To me, OBP is not great. I'm not a big fan of that. And to me, also, Chicago is going to be dependent on Ian Happ for production this year. And if he can do it, there we go. 70 runs. 65 runs, 80 RBIs. Yeah, definitely. That's in the bag with him with 20 plus dingers. And he could be up to 10 stolen bases, but he could also take the slugger route and decide he's just not going to steal anymore. And to me, that kills any potential bonus bump you get from him. Adolis Garcia is a guy who can typically be in the mid-teens in stolen bases, and that's cool. He's also shown a history of 30 plus home runs. He just went under the radar for all of us, but Texas is better now. So if he even ends up batting like 5th or 6th, he could easily be an 80-80 guy. If he ends up going 7 or 8, you're going to drop back on the runs, but the RBI potential is certainly still there for him. And I like it. The problem with teams that get good with star players, and one of them is injury prone, is that you could end up really missing out. So if Corey Seager has some type of 6-week injury, that could really put a wrench in a lot of those Garcia owners out there who are hoping for a lot this year. And then Joshua Lowe is really friggin' good, like Ty said. And like to the point that I don't want to rank him as high as I have him, having never had a major league at bat, to say he is going to be the 47th best player in the outfield the next 5 years is bold. But he has proven that that is very possible for him, and to fight through Tampa Bay's crowded positions to get enough time, I think says a lot about my belief in his skill set.
Yep.
So and Ty's got him ranked 10 higher in the mid 30s. So I think that's a lot. Moving into the next group, I don't know that they're as fun and exciting to talk about as some of the others, but it's still good. And for me, this is a big guy here. Jose Siri with Houston is the 40th ranked player. Jose who? Siri. Who? Siri. Hi, I'm Siri. Blah blah blah. Anyway, so he had a great debut in the show this year. He's, I think, a former Cincinnati farmhand, but this is an average guy. This is a stolen base guy. This is a power guy, and it's in the bank for those three categories. So what you need is you need him to hit high enough in the order that he can also be a run guy, but you also want RBI potential. So I think if he's leading off or in the top 2 with Houston, he is going to be a 90 run guy. It's the RBIs that you're going to be trying to sort out what's going to be reasonable for him. But regardless, I really, really like Jose Siri to be a huge breakout this year, and people are sleeping on him.
And a big reason Miles Straw got traded last season, right?
Yeah, they were totally fine to let him go when Houston's making a playoff push, because they knew they had other in-house options. Pavin Smith is at 39 with Arizona. He's going to be a good major leaguer. Ty, you've got him ranked high 20th. So you must see some more pop there. So I want to hear about him after I rhyme off the rest of the guys. Brandon Nimmo with the Mets, perennial 800 OPS guy. He's good. He never seems like he's as good as he is, but he helps you win. Cedric Mullins with Baltimore, breakout season last year. Definitely going to be some recoil from that, but still, like we talked about, Baltimore will put up runs. They'll be disruptive. Mullins is going to be one of those guys. 36, Kyle Lewis, former rookie of the year in 2020. Again, sustained injury last year. However, a healthy Kyle Lewis, which is what I'm banking on, is a top 20 outfielder, and I've got him at 19. For us overall, he's at 36. So Ty, tell me why Pavin Smith is so good. What do you see, man? I know you got a mouthful of, what's that, chew? You having some chew? I wish my video was working, because I got big league chew.
For me, it comes down to really simple playing time scenario here. And I think the hit tool is very reasonable with Pavin Smith. I think the power is there. And I think it comes down to a couple of different things for me. This is a first-round talent on a team that needs some stars. And he's going to have sustained opportunity in Arizona. I really do believe, though, his long-term position is first base. I think Christian Walker's time there is limited, and I think it's Pavin Smith time. So I think you're going to see a production boost here this season in power. The OPS is okay, but I think the power bump will bring the slug up, which will get the OPS close to that 800 mark. And I'm not going to say he's elite, but what I like about him in terms of ranking him higher is I think his floor is much higher than a lot of guys in this part of our list. So that's why I had him higher. I'm always going to rank guys that give me consistency higher, and that's where I have him. He's still just 26 this season. He's just entering his prime. I'll bet on those guys all day, every day.
All right, Ty. So give us the 35 to 31, because this is diverse.
Yeah, I mean, this is a group that I hate. I would never draft like almost any of these guys, except for Michael Brantley, who I have at 35. Hit tool guy. Love these guys. Always will, always have. I owned him in a lot of formats last year, which hurt me because he was hurt a lot of the season. Still love Michael Brantley, but shockingly, he was injured. Like, I don't know if anyone saw that coming. It's a guy who spent his whole career injured, but he's a great player, and no one argues that. Like, when he's healthy, he's very, very good.
Like, he still had 469 at bats, but that's not 600.
No, exactly, right. And that's been his whole career. Is he's just never really had what's he got, 2 600 bat seasons, maybe.
I don't know. I just very quickly looked on Baseball Reference, because I was like, well, I know he missed some time, so I quickly looked. He does have a 32.9 WAR. I know you
No,
like to talk about
but
the
he's
WAR.
phenomenal. That's in the top 1,000 of all time, as we've talked about.
How is your WAR league going, by the way?
I'm in no war leagues ever. I just like bringing it up because it's funny. But Miles Straw is ahead of him, former teammate of Michael Brantley, moved to Cleveland. The greatest thing that's happened to Cleveland since they rebranded.
The
And
Guardians.
I do like the Guardians. A lot of people hate the logo. I love it. I love the G with the wings. Huge
Well,
fan.
it was Dave that was on with us last year from High Stakes
Yeah,
Heat who said he thought it was going to be the Guardians because of the
he did
statues.
call it. He did call
So
that one.
good on him.
Yeah, but I've also seen a lot of hate for that logo and branding, which I just don't get. It's good. But anyway, moving ahead. Miles Straw, I'm not I've seen him ranked like as like the greatest center fielder the league's ever seen.
They're
Um,
looking for 85 stolen bases. That's the
yeah,
problem.
like it's just not realistic. Like he's very much a top 50 outfielder. I've got him at 31, Robbie. You've got him at 46. I've got him at 31 because I think people are not going to be scared of the Cleveland lineup this year. And I think he's going to get some cookie cutter fastballs just because there's no reason to worry about him getting on base. And he's going to do more damage getting walked than he is swinging a bat. So I think that's why I have him. I think there's just going to be a 1 year bump because Cleveland sucks, more so than anything else. Ahead of him, guy that doesn't know shirt sizes, Harrison Bader. I have him 46, Robbie. You've got him 29. Kind of the opposite of Miles Straw. Like, I would take Miles Straw over Harrison Bader all day, every day. Like, that's just the way I have this one played. You've always been a little bit higher on Bader from the very beginning. I just don't see the same offensive guy. Now, if you were to ask me which guy do I want on my team, like in real life, not fantasy baseball, I actually might pick Bader. It would be a coin toss for me. But I certainly in this scenario as a fantasy projection, I'm taking Straw all day every day because I think 3 categories for sure with a little upside in 4. And that's it for me. It's that simple. But last guy in this grouping, Marcelo Zuna, who I talked about while you were off trying to figure out where your face was, Robbie. Um,
Which I never found.
yeah, I mean, Ozuna was a good fantasy baseball player before all of the off the field incidents. I see no reason why we won't see him taking selfies down the third base line on his home run shot this year. I'd like Atlanta to be good, so why not like Ozuna to be good? He's got a couple years left before he starts to get old, and I've got him ranked 31, Robbie. Sorry, 33. You're at 41. Uh, Lots to like here. I mean, that's the group. I did skip over Gurriel, who I see here at 32. Gurriel, I have at 26. Like, I think there's going to be growth in the power category. Gurriel Jr. here in Toronto. I think that's the one thing holding a lot of people back is can he hit for power? And the answer is yes. We saw a little bit in the back half of season last year where he pounded out some home runs. I think most people are just unsure whether he can produce at that level. And the answer is yes. But what we need to watch for is can he do it early season? Because we have seen some consistency to a slow start for Lourdes Gurriel Jr. Anybody in that group that you want to touch on, Robbie?
Obviously, I want to talk about Harrison Bader. I want to talk about, I think it's called baderscloset.com. That's the website. And I'm not joking. You can go there and he has t-shirts that are related to Harrison Bader himself. So he and Marcus Stroman would get along great. Amazing. They would be high five best friends. But Harrison Bader is also a really, really good baseball player. In abbreviated time last year, so 367 at bats, he had 16 dingers, 45 runs. Yeah, your Ty's looking at it now on the live stream. 50 RBIs, 9 stolen bases, OBP 324, and an OPS at 785. But let me tell you what would happen in a real season, a full season with a competitive Cardinals team down the stretch. You got 25 dingers coming from him. You got 15 stolen bases. You've got 70 runs and you've got 60 plus RBIs. And that is non-peak. That is if we just played this out longer. We didn't give him more ebb and flow in his season. A projection for next year is very conservative in my mind to say he's a 270 hitter with 25 dingers and 70-70.
Can we
And
please talk about this
bases.
Bader Tots t-shirt though?
Yeah, there's Bader Tots. There's Darth Bader. There's also a shirt where on the back it is his hair flowing down from the back of the t-shirt. It basically, this is like what Noah Syndergaard should have done 4 years ago, and Harrison Bader is doing it
Oh,
now.
there's the hair shirt.
He's got a logo. He's got everything. So you need to know that
Bader
Harrison
Tots
Bader
is
for
so
real.
good though.
Yeah, Bader Tots is great, and just like he is at baseball. The rest of the crew here, Ty, you did a good job covering them there. So I'm going to go 30 to 26. We've got 31-year-old Mitch Haniger with Seattle, 29. Joe Adell, the 23-year-old with the Angels. We've got perennial IL outfielder for Minnesota, Byron Buxton, who for some reason got paid a butt ton of money to be on the IL. We have major rebound candidate Jared Kelenic with Seattle, and we've got major rebound candidate Cody Bellinger with the Dodgers. This is a crew. Now, Mitch Haniger just needs to sustain. We know runs and RBIs are going to be there for him. It's all about power for Mitch and how high can those runs and RBIs go for him. Is this a 90, 90, 100, 100 year for him with Seattle? If he can be healthy and hit, we know it's going to be good for him. And maybe Seattle does something where they give him a lot of DH time. I don't know. They've got a lot of infielders to move around. It's a tricky situation for the manager, but it's a good situation if you're Mitch Haniger because you're going to play Joe Adell. Lot to prove this year. The Angels in the outfield off the top I mentioned. This is one of the guys that needs to make or break it as a starting outfielder this year, not as a fourth guy. That we could absolutely see the Clint Frazier thing play out here, and I would hate for that to happen. Byron Buxton, we know he's good. He just has major health concerns. I have him 34. Ty's got him 25. And I'm sure the difference is that I have more concern about his health than Ty does, although I'm sure we are both baking in a lot of health concern within that for 5-year window, despite his contract. Kelenic just didn't do it last year, but we know he's good. We know the skill set's good. We just need to see him. Is he going to be like a slow, steady increase, or is he just going to all of a sudden be better out of the gate next year? I think it's going to be slow and steady. Like Cody Bellinger is terrifying. Cody Bellinger getting 25 home runs and 20 stolen bases and a 280 average absolutely should be in the bank, and it's not. I got no clue what the heck I can expect from Cody Bellinger, but I refuse to put him post 30. So that's this group. It is complex. I don't think anyone in this group you can pencil anything in, Ty.
No,
Like,
you can't.
what an interesting 5-pack.
Yeah, that's a tough group. I mean, it's a fun group, and I'm buying literally all of them.
Yeah,
in
they're
every
all
format.
fascinating to have, right? You just don't want that to be
Like Byron
all three
Buxton's
of your outfielders should not be those three guys. Like your outfield should not be all of them.
Yeah, 100%. If you own more than one of those guys, you're screwed. You're screwed. Byron Buxton is a top 15, maybe even top 10 outfielder, healthy. So
Healthy full season, yeah.
Yeah, and Cody Bellinger has had multiple top 5 outfield seasons in his career so far, but he's also had multiple this guy might get
2020, 2021. Like he got dropped in our home league, and he's not going to be a keeper.
Yeah,
Out of the 100-ish dudes that we keep in that league, he will. And I don't even know if he'll be a first-round pick. To be perfectly honest,
shouldn't be. It's too scary. It's too risky to waste that pick. But at the same time, I also want to buy him, so it's good. I disagree with the Kelenic take in terms of the slow burn. I think we're going to see a very different Jared Kelenic this season. I think he faced a lot of political battles last year, and his prep was going to be odd. So I think this year he's going to enter spring with a for sure starting outfield job. And I think for that reason alone, we're going to see a different Kelenic. But jumping into our top 25, Jesse Winker, Michael Conforto, Giancarlo Stanton, don't call me Mike Stanton, Brian Reynolds, and Alex Verdugo. This is an interesting group, right? Like Jesse Winker is maybe one of the most fascinating outfielders in the game of baseball. Like, what do you mean I got to hit left-handed pitching? That's basically who he is, right? Like, this is a guy that destroys. And I mean, not even like politely like has success against righties. Like, he destroys righties. And that's a very significant skill. He hit 346 against righties last season, Robbie. 346 in the major leagues with 21 home runs. That is impressive. On the flip side, he hit 177 against the lefties and just 3 home runs. So we have concerns about the sustained success. The end totals are good, to me, Robbie, and I know we don't necessarily disagree on this, but I also know that we don't agree either. To me, Winker is the easiest trade target if you own Jesse Winker. Like, that's a good season to trade Jesse Winker, and I don't think enough people are thinking that way. So that to me, he's a tradable asset. Period. A guy on the other side, I actually think is a buy target, and to me is one of the best buys that we'll see this offseason, and could end up being the best free agent signing, depending on contract and term that we see at the major league levels. Michael Conforto, another left-handed. No, wait, yeah, left-handed. Michael Conforto, left-handed. I can't even remember right now. Conforto. Oh, I think he's left-handed, but I feel like he's right-handed. He throws right, so I'm
I was
half
just gonna
right,
say
and he
I'm
bats left.
he's a
So
lefty.
I'm technically right.
Sorry.
I'm technically right. So
I like that
anyway,
I was
point
just
is,
talking for 5 seconds and
you're on mute.
I was just not anywhere close to the microphone.
So
So my
Conforto,
apologies.
I love as a left-handed bat signing somewhere, and I think from a value perspective, this is a guy easily a top 15 consistent bat for the last 3 seasons. Like that doesn't just go away. Like that's the biggest mistake fantasy owners make is you're like, oh, this guy just forgot how to hit. Like, I'm sorry, a 28-year-old does not just forget how to hit, right? He needs a good situation, which is anywhere but the Mets, and he's going to be fine. So as fantasy owners, we got to take advantage of these situations. I'm 19th, Robbie. I think he could still creep into top 15 still. He finished last season really strong. Upside is there. Giancarlo Stanton, this guy terrifies me. I'm 24, you're 25 here.
Yeah.
I think both of us like want Stanton to be more valuable for fantasy owners. Former MVP guy here in New York. The DH full time is going to be a thing for him moving forward, which is great. Should reduce the injuries we see from Giancarlo Stanton. And the power is so good. Like, it's no questions about that. But the strikeout numbers have started to creep up just a little bit to the point that we should be concerned. Do you feel the same way, Robbie?
Yeah, like 3-1 last year, 157 Ks, 63 walks. But I mean, the big thing with Stanton is he's supposed to be a 900 OPS guy. So if he's not a 900 OPS guy, that means he's probably not hitting 35 plus home runs. He's probably not getting you 80 runs, probably not getting you 80 RBIs. But if he finds a way to do, 2 of those things like he did last year, that's a valuable guy. It's just, are you concerned that 157 strikeouts becomes 170 like it was for him back in 14, which was a long time ago, mind you, but still that is an issue that you need to know as a fantasy owner. He's also only 32, right? So you got Nelson Cruz, 7-8 years older, still bopping the ball. It's very reasonable to think that Stanton could actually become what I will call consistent as a 30 plus home run guy who can give you, 80 for runs and RBIs. I just don't know how to weight it. Last year, he was really light on the runs with 64, heavy on the RBIs with 97. I think that's pretty reasonable to expect moving forward.
And he's going to finish his career here, like at least until 2027 in New York.
No one's taking that contract.
Yeah, like it's for sure he's a Yankee unless he retires, right? But he had 35 home runs a year last year in a year that most people don't really realize he played a lot of games, right? So, Giancarlo Stanton is a sneaky good fantasy asset as long as he stays healthy. The guys ahead of him, Reynolds and Verdugo, very similar players.
Yeah, they are.
Both contact guys, good hit tool guys. I'm gonna say this because I don't think most people have it this way, Robbie. Like, you have Reynolds at 16, I have Verdugo at 18, right? And on the flip side, Reynolds at 32 for me, and Verdugo 27. So we clearly differ on our take on these two
individuals.
Guys. Yeah. But to me, Verdugo has way higher upside, and it's on the power that I like. I think Reynolds as a switch hitter has some value. I think his splits will be better from that perspective as a result of that. But I just think the power gap to me is just very, very, very different. Verdugo is a far better hitter power-wise than Reynolds, and I think that was the differentiating factor. I just think Verdugo, he might be the most underrated left-handed bat in baseball right now. And that's saying a lot because there's a lot of them out there. I just don't think people really realize how good Alex Verdugo actually is. It's as simple as that to me.
Both of these guys are very good. I have a personal preference on Reynolds because he's been so successful, 90 RBIs, 93 runs last year, and 24 dingers with a 300 plus average on a terrible Pittsburgh team. So you start to give him something to go with. I think that sustains. I don't think he has to be better. He doesn't have to be a 110 with 30 home runs. I think he can just sustain it. But his 2020 was very bad. There had to have been some things going on off the field that affected that, or there was an injury. There's a reason behind it because he takes his walks. His OBP was almost 400 last year. He's just so damn good and on such a crappy team. And I remember trying to acquire him in trade. And I said to the owner, like, the team he's on is so bad. Like I don't know why. Like, I forget what the ask was, but it was something like Luis Hill or Gil, Gil, with the Yankees as part of the package. But he wasn't even like the centerpiece. He was just amongst the 3-for-1 that the guy was wanting. And I said, not at all worth it. And at season's end, I absolutely would have loved to have had Brian Reynolds. As good as Luis Hill was, my team missed the playoffs, and the difference would have been a full season of Brian Reynolds versus a couple of starts from Luis Hill, which, again, I don't even know if I started him because I just wasn't sure what to expect. But Reynolds to me is a lock and load, elite talent for years to come. And I think Verdugo is very good. Absolutely think Verdugo is very good, but he was also in a loaded lineup, and he will need to be in a loaded lineup to continue to do what he's done.
I just really like Boston's lineup moving forward. That's what I like. You know, we've talked about
how long have you been a Red Sox fan, Ty?
Never. I hate Boston so much, but I also know them inside and out as a result of hating them so much.
Right. And both guys are close in age. Reynolds 28 and Verdugo 26 he'll play this year at. So we cleared that up too. But next guy up here is Joey Gallo, 28-year-old. He is ranked 20th for us. The Yankee, I mean, we just expect a bazillion home runs, and we cross our fingers that there aren't a bazillion strikeouts. Next up is Nick Castellanos. And I'll be honest, I have him ranked in my 20s, mid-20s, simply because he doesn't have a home today. If he was going back to the Reds, everybody on the Reds would be getting a bump because that lineup would be so much better. Guaranteed, we know what's going on, but we don't, so I'm not doing that. Boston outfielder DH JD Martinez is ranked at 18th. Starling Marte, now with the Mets, ranked at 17th, which for redraft, some of you will think is a crime, but for Dynasty, again, 5-year window. And at 16 is Randy Arozarena with Tampa Bay, the 27-year-old, just productive dude. Starling Marte is the only guy I'm going to discuss in this little crew here, Ty, and that's because 47 stolen bases in 2021, I think, led baseball. If that disappears, this is a 2-category guy. His ability to get runs is going to go down if he doesn't maintain a high average, 290 plus, and the stolen bases are what make him elite. So you can't expect much more than, the low teens for power, but it's all average. It's all stolen bases. And by virtue of those 2 categories being good, he can then be a high run guy. If one of those 3 things dips off, he's not nearly as valuable. And people, I think, honestly, are just like forgetting that fact. And they're like, stolen bases, forgetting that he's now a Met and they will Mets him. So owner beware.
Well, I want Castellanos to end up in Philly. I think it's a perfect fit. He's going to have to play left field because there's no way he's taking right field from Harper. But I think there's a desperate need for outfield depth in Philly. I think they've got the money to bring in a guy like Castellanos, and I think he fits the middle of that lineup in a way that they desperately need to fill it. I think it's a logical fit, and I think his value goes through the roof if that's where he lands. So I've taken that risk in my rankings by putting him 15. The guy hits. There's no question. The hit tool has always been there. He just needs the people around him to give him the production bump. That's the guy I like in this group. The rest of, Marte and JD are fading. They have to. Still great players, but they're just on the backside. So they can only kind of go backwards. Arozarena is a guy that I think everybody over publicized him last season heading into draft time. Definitely heading into offseason trades for sure. Everybody thought he was like Mickey Mantle heading into last offseason. But at the end of the day, like his value's dipped. And that right there is a time to buy. Like this guy's still very good at baseball. And he had a good season last year, even though most people don't see it that way. I think the sky is the limit still for this guy. And I think everyone assumes Wander Franco is going to be the guy in Tampa Bay as the centerpiece of that team. I still very much feel like it's going to be Arizarena, even though Wander Franco is a very good baseball player. I just think Arizarena brings more to the team. I think we're going to see it this year for the first time, to be blunt.
I'm not going to disagree on that point there. I certainly think Tampa Bay is loaded up. And when we get into the next group, we've got the highest ranked Tampa Bay outfielder. But first up is Christian Yelich with Milwaukee. Holy crap, what is Christian Yelich now? We were seeing him, 3 years ago as the number 1 ranked dynasty guy, top 5 2 years ago, and now he's just dropping back. So for us, he's the 15th ranked outfielder because there's a lot of concern in his game. A lot of things changed with how he played and his production in fantasy. So rightfully so, he finds himself in the teens here. Austin Meadows, the 27-year-old Tampa Bay Ray, power for days. Like Ty talked about, potential for position switch or more DH time. He played a lot of DH, and I appreciate that Tampa Bay understood that a healthy Austin Meadows DHing is a good offensive Austin Meadows. And if you're relying on the average, you're going to be a little bit less interested in him. If you have an OBP, OPS, points league, you'll love you some Austin Meadows. Toronto's Teoscar Hernandez will, I think, play this year at 29, and he's great, and that's why he's 13th. And Tyler O'Neill, huge riser last year, but Ty can tell you a million times over, he had ranked him 43rd, and that was him being conservative and not wanting to be railed on. But he loved O'Neill and wanted him everywhere and was very excited to see what occurred for him last year. And now we can, just say this is a guy who is in the upper echelon of major league outfielders. And he's right next to another Toronto outfielder, George Springer, who, if he played a full season, would have possibly helped Toronto still miss the playoffs because they have a crappy manager, but would have had a better stat line. And if Springer can play a full season, man, he is dangerous. And that Toronto lineup is going to be dialed in yet again. We still don't know who's going to be second base for this year. There are things and questions about third base, but they have Bo, they have Vlad. It's going to be okay. So Springer's going to be good.
So good. Yeah, so good. That Springer's a huge piece here. I'm an 8, Robbie. Like, I have him in top 10.
Yep.
And the big reason for me is I love the home run upside, full season in the dome for Springer. And I'll be the only one to say this probably. Springer, healthy, could hit 40 home runs. Like, just think about that thought. Like, that's crazy, right? Like, no one is saying Springer is a 40 home run guy. No one. So that's just what he's going to potentially be with Vlad and Bo and Teoscar hitting behind him. Like, that's the reality. Like, who are you going to pitch to? You really don't have a choice.
In 19, he had 39 dingers. And last year in what you could consider half a season, 299 at-bats, he had 22. It's possible. It's just like, can he be 120 RBI guy too? And that's like lineup dependent, right? But like, that's where Springer could just crush for a year or two and just be the biggest and the best trade acquisition you make in your dynasty leagues. But again, he's got to be healthy, and so does that Blue Jays top part of the lineup.
Exactly. So getting into our top 10 here, Robbie, we've got Kyle Tucker, Mookie Betts, my favorite buy this offseason, Yordan Alvarez, Aaron Judge, and Eloy Jimenez. So this is obviously an elite of elite kind of group. We started to get into that in the last section here. But, I think the biggest surprise for me in this group, Robbie, is Kyle Tucker. Kyle Tucker is a good baseball player. He goes sans gloves, which obviously brings a significant amount of which we love here at Dingers. Like, we love the swag that Kyle Tucker can be. The big thing for me, like Kyle Tucker, like I'm hesitant. I have him 11, Robbie. The only thing that holds me back here on Kyle Tucker is the power. Like, we just haven't seen it yet. Like, we all
come on, he had a 30 home run season.
But it's not obvious 30 home runs. Like, it's just not It's just not there. Like, but look at the guys he's around here, right? Like, so remember, this is like the elite of elite power guys in this outfield, right? So Kyle Tucker finds himself with Mookie Betts, who, isn't necessarily the power guy in this group, but at the same time,
Betts is
you're
a
going to
second
get
baseman too.
25. Yeah, right. Like, we know we're going to get 25 home runs from Betts, pretty much guaranteed. But never going to see 40 from Betts, right? So, but then you go above that. Now we're in real power. Like Yordan Alvarez could hit 50 home runs in his career. Like that's realistic. Aaron Judge has hit 50 home runs. Did he hit 50?
I'll look after. I'm still stuck on
Yeah.
Tucker. I'm waiting for it. I'm
But
waiting
he's
to
going to
talk
be close. And Jimenez also is in that same category. So like Tucker's just not the guy. Like if you were to compare him to Eloy, Aaron Judge, and Alvarez, like Tucker's not in that category. Very similar to Betts. So what is Tucker going to be? Is he going to be a guy that figures out a power stroke? Or is he just going to be, Lyle Overbay, where
No,
25
no. Tucker is
I'm asking the question,
serious,
Rob. I'm not trying to say he sucks. I'm asking the question. Relax.
I think he is a serious 100 perennial candidate. Now that obviously depends on the lineup around him, but as you said, Yordan Alvarez is part of that lineup. Altuve is going to hang around as part of that lineup. The power is real. The RBIs will come, and the average boosted up big time last year, 30-ish points. Now, if the average, and that's like career best for him, if the average is not sustainable, if he's back down in the 260, 270 range, well, then yeah, we're going to see a big regression on runs and RBIs. But he was 83 runs, 92 RBIs. Am I reading that right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And 14 stolen bases. And to me, and you and I are absolutely valuing stolen bases differently. And that's why, we'll talk about it when we get there. But we certainly are valuing it differently. And I am looking at a 25-year-old entering this year to be able to repeat double-digit stolen bases for the next 5 years, to repeat 20 plus easy dingers the next 5 years, and to be in that 80-80 range as like a base, as a floor, because I think the talent's just there. And that's like, it's fine that we have this little bit of a difference on it, because we're still talking about a guy that is right in and around the cusp of the top 10, right? Mookie Betts has done it. I'm now saying I think Kyle Tucker can too.
Yeah, I'm not trying to hate on Kyle Tucker. I like Kyle Tucker. I'm not sure who he's going to be. That's what it comes down to. Yordan Alvarez for me is still the Houston Astro I want to own.
Yeah, that's your guy in this group, right? That's your highest ranked guy.
It's my guy in all of baseball, to be honest. Like I love Yordan Alvarez. Like I don't think people realize. I said this heading into last season too, Rob. So I'm going to repeat it again. I do not think people realize how good Yordan Alvarez is. We got a very small glimpse of it when he took over in the playoffs. But this guy's very, very good. It might be the best player in the American League this season. Like that is possible. Is he going to be? No, there's no guarantee.
No, he's not.
But he could be. and there, like, there's only a couple guys in this list that could be, and he's one of them.
The other guy in this list that could be an MVP, and it was 52 in 2017 for Aaron Judge, and that is Aaron Judge, who last year had a full season of baseball, although people seem to think he just missed time. He played 148 games last year, 89 runs, 98 RBIs, 39 dingers, and a 287 average. That has been the thing with him. What's the average going to be? Because if he's not hitting for a high average, he's not going to be very helpful. But I think this is just like perennial all-star, perennial home run type, race guy. Like this is just power for days and natural power, because he's huge. And if the time comes that he can't hit the fastball anymore, it's going to end, and it's going to end fast. He's turning 30 this year, but I think we got 5 easy years left. The biggest problem he's going to have is getting DH at bats if the time comes he needs them, because as you said earlier, Ty, we've got Stanton blocking that view here. So, and as for Eloy, just great, solid player. So top 5.
Well, the one thing really quick, and we talked about it with Marcus Semien as well, like Aaron Judge hit 331 against fastball last year. So that's good numbers. We like that.
Yeah, he's able to rock it, and people have to throw it. You got to throw it to him. So coming in at number 5 for us is Luis Robert, who missed a lot of time last year, and when healthy is absolutely elite. Our number 4 is Mike Trout. Unfortunately, Trout missed a lot of time, and when he misses time, the Angels suffer. Let's hope we get some healthy years out of Trout. But when healthy, you cannot argue what he does at all categories. He just helps you win. But at age 30, with history of injuries behind him, my concern is that there are more injuries to come, which is why he's not ranked any higher, because Ty fully believes a healthy Trout is a top 2 outfielder. Number 3, we've got Bryce Harper with the Phillies, and we both agree he is the 3rd best. You both know, or not you both, you all know who are the remaining top 2. Ty, do you have anything to say? And I will give you the honor of stating 1 and 2.
Yeah, so this whole group in the top, I just want to touch on it because I think the top 4 for me are worth noting. Number 1 on our list is Juan Soto. Number 2, Ronald Acuna Jr. I have Mike Trout listed 2. I have Bryce Harper listed 3. I have Ronald Acuna 4, and I have Juan Soto 1. And the big reason here, I think it's important to note, Ronald Acuna Jr., phenomenal baseball player. No one's going to argue that. Like, anyone that does is an idiot. But Ronald Acuna Jr. is a bit of a power speed guy. So when you injure ACL, you're going to have a slower recovery. Like, I just don't think Atlanta's going to allow him to steal bases this season at the clip that he did before. We might see some sustained growth on the stolen bases at the end of the season, but I think we're going to see a very slow tick into speed being used for Acuna Jr. This year. So we have 2 things that could happen. We could see a bump in power, so home runs. We could see a bump in RBIs, but both of those realistically without the stolen bases probably means a reduction in runs. And for me, that's why I have him further back. If you were to give me who do I think is the safest bet in this top 4, it's Mike Trout. After that, it's Juan Soto. And Juan Soto is probably the best player of the 4. So that's how I got here with this list, Robbie. I think Harper is easily the most underappreciated superstar in baseball. No questions about that. He's just very consistent. He goes about his at-bats and very professional. And for a guy that everybody thinks is a bit of a swagger monkey, or what's the right word? Egomaniac, maybe is a good word to say.
Yep.
I just don't think he carries that crutch anymore. Like, he's just very much goes about his business, being an MVP caliber guy. It's that simple.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got Acuna 1, Soto 2, and the difference to me is that if you just go by standard 5x5, Soto is not stealing bases. That is 20% of his value in a 5x5. That's the category that he has to be so much better than all the rest to make up for it. Acuna steals bases, and the average is an issue, or sorry, could be an issue with Acuna, but Soto also had 5 months of solid baseball as far as the stat total was, and then absolutely amazing September. And it was unfortunate because in some leagues you had suffered through a rough season and a non-elite season. And I mean, whatever, it was still elite, but a non-top 5 season from Soto until September, when he just came out of whatever slumber he was in and raked. And that was part of the wave that helped Thomas with Washington as well, and helped some of the other Kyber Ruiz finish the season well, because guys like Soto are just on another level. And when Soto's doing that for a full season, you know, he's walking more than he's striking out. He's got an amazing average, lots of power, so runs, RBIs all come. He's just missing stolen bases. So even to Ty's point about Acuna possibly being slow to come back from stolen bases in 2022, well, there's still 4 more seasons where I think Acuna is going to have more stolen bases in 2023 than Soto does the next 5 years. And because of that, to me, it's Acuna, and the risk reward of the strikeout and power and stolen base and the loaded lineup in Atlanta versus the questionable lineup in Washington gives Acuna that for me. But we both agree on 3, which I think is saying a lot. That we agree on the fact that Bryce Harper is just damn good. We just think there are other pieces that are better around it. And I talked about Trout and the rest. So the outfield is insanely deep and has a ton of movement year over year. There are deals to be had. There will be a player or 2 that we didn't mention who probably finished this year in the top 60. but sustained success is so hard to come by with your outfielders. And one of the reasons why some of the guys that might not seem like they belong in the top 20 are there is because they do that for us. They do that year over year. Joey Gallo had an average under 200 and found himself ranked 20th because he gets a ton of runs, a ton of RBIs and home runs. And that's 60% of typical leagues fantasy value right there. You go to OBP, he's even more valuable. OPS, even more valuable. So one category he hurts you with, and he steals a couple bases, right? Crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a crazy list, and there's just so much talent here, and that's why it'll be inconsistent from year to year. But we're talking 5 years. It's a great way to look at your list, guys. So don't get lost in what somebody did at the end of last season or last year. We're talking about sustainable growth on your roster. So great spot to leave it, Robbie. We've been here for a long time.
Oh my God, yes.
Not a good time.
I had fun. But I like hanging out with you.
So we'll do it again sometime soon here. But until next time, it's been Rob and Tyler here on Dingers.